Chapter 51. After Shen Xingyan ended the call with Chu Wei, his mood became much brighter, and even his steps felt lighter. Chu Wei is like a little sun in Shen Xingyan's world. Whenever he has some negative emotions, she will use her scorching light to dispel them. This is also an important reason why Shen Xingyan has been able to persist until now without being disturbed by negative emotions. After Shen Xingyan left the school, he walked a few steps to the training hall next door. After showing the membership card given by Teacher Li to the front desk staff, he successfully enjoyed a 20% discount. "Hello, may I ask if Coach Li is here today?" Shen Xingyan asked with a smile after taking back the membership card and paying the fee for 6 hours of training. Although it is not convenient for him to repay Teacher Li directly in order to hide his secret, it does not prevent him from expressing his gratitude. If Teacher Li is present, he can also express his gratitude in person. "Coach Li? Oh, he didn't come here today. I heard that he went out of bounds to perform a mission." The front desk staff seemed to have an impression of Shen Xingyan. After hearing the other party's inquiry, he did not ignore him like he did to other staff, but replied calmly. After all, he was someone Coach Li had asked to take special care of, so she still needed to give him some face. Going out of bounds to carry out a mission. Shen Xingyan couldn't help but frown slightly when he heard this, and a look of worry appeared in his eyes. When he was in school, he often heard some teachers say that every out-of-bounds mission was not an easy task to complete, and the crisis it contained was full of uncertainty. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but worry about Teacher Li. When the front desk staff saw the worry in Shen Xingyan's eyes, they nodded secretly in their hearts. It seems that Coach Li did not make a mistake this time. At least from his performance just now, this little kid still knows how to care about him and is not an ungrateful person. "Don't worry. I heard that this mission is just to conduct a survey near the border to prepare for your graduation test in 20 days. It won't be too dangerous." The front desk staff explained casually. "So that's how it is. The danger is really not that great, thank you for telling me." Shen Xingyan breathed a sigh of relief and put his previous worries aside. Then he smiled and thanked the front desk staff, then walked towards the strength training area. The front desk staff just glanced at the other person's back, then looked away and continued to busy themselves with other things. She couldn't say she disliked Shen Xingyan, a professional who had just awakened, but she didn't have much of a fondness for him either. After all, she has received too many guests like Shen Xingyan over the years, and it is impossible for her to have true feelings for everyone. Moreover, these people are often enthusiastic at the beginning, as if they are experienced in life, but after tasting the sweetness of the star source world, they will gradually disappear before long and give up this difficult path of improvement. Only a very small number of people can persist. The head of the base has no way to deal with this phenomenon. After all, this is human instinct, an instinct to seek benefits and avoid harm. She cannot comment on this, and can only say that hard work will be rewarded. Anyone who can persevere must be a person with great perseverance, and showing true feelings to such people is the right choice. Shen Xingyan naturally would not have the same inner reaction as the front desk staff. For him, exercising well is for himself, not for others to see. Some things are useless to talk about, and everything can only be proved by time. He came to the area for strength training. At this time, there were few people here. There were only a few people who seemed to be slacking off. They trained for a while and then rested for a while. From time to time, he could hear them talking about the things that needed to be done in the star source world. Shen Xingyan ignored them and directly selected a device, adjusted its difficulty to the maximum acceptable value at the moment, and then started training as if no one was around. Compared to any other professionals, Shen Xingyan still has certain advantages in training in reality, and this advantage is his current state of concentration on training. In this state, his training effect is more than half of that of others. After all, he doesn't need to worry about whether something will happen in the star source world after leaving like other professionals do. Because his little skeletons can handle all his affairs. Shen Xingyan only needs to go to the planting space at the specified time, check the results after he left, and then use his 2 powerful skills. After that, he can ignore everything and sleep and exercise without any worries. Therefore, when he exercises at this time, the effect produced can be said to be twice the result with half the effort. The few people who were closer to him, seeing Shen Xingyan, the Roll King, also quickly moved away, not wanting to be rolled up. Moreover, if a person is so cruel to himself, he is definitely a ruthless person. Several people shouted, "We can't afford to offend him." When Shen Xingyan had about 10 minutes left in his 3-hour strength training, he suddenly felt that the entire strength equipment seemed to have become lighter. This made him stunned, and then he quickly got down from the equipment to check it, and subconsciously thought in his heart, could it be that I just broke someone else's equipment? Am I so unlucky? Shen Xingyan thought about this while checking carefully, and he breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that there was no abnormality in all the structures of the equipment. Although he has some money now, it is still far from enough to compensate for the equipment. I'm glad the equipment is fine. I was shocked, but what about that feeling just now? Could it be that I had a breakthrough? Shen Xingyan thought of this possibility immediately after feeling relieved, and then quickly picked up the Xing Yuan card to check his own attributes. I saw that the strength attribute column in his real attribute panel should have been 10 points, but now it has become 11 points. A feeling of joy instantly filled Shen Xingyan's brain, and he immediately understood what had caused his reaction just now. At this moment, he jumped up excitedly, but did not shout out loud. After all, he was in a public place and he still needed to restrain himself and not be too ostentatious. But he still clenched his fist and shook it vigorously a few times to show his celebration. Being able to increase his strength attribute by 1 point on the second day of strength training was several times faster than the physical attribute he had trained at home before. This was indeed beyond his expectations. Chapter 52. Shen Xingyan looked at the attribute panel and saw that his strength attribute had increased a little, and his attack power had also increased a little, and he felt quite happy. After all, he got 10 gold coins just like that, which was indeed something worth celebrating, but he also knew that now was not the time to celebrate, so he could only try to keep a low profile. After all, his situation was rather special. Shen Xingyan forced himself to suppress the joy in his heart, and with a smile he continued to complete the remaining 10 minutes of strength training according to his previous plan. However, this time he increased the difficulty of the exercise a little bit so that he could still maintain the desired effect of the exercise. Soon, the strength training of more than 10 minutes was completed. There was no further improvement in attributes, and Shen Xingyan did not expect this to happen. At this moment, he quickly stopped the equipment, and took deep breaths while panting to relieve his tired body. 3 hours of strength training did consume a lot of his physical energy, but it was still within his control. Although he was a little tired physically, he was very energetic. The improvement of strength attribute made the words hard work will be rewarded stir in his mind, making him more motivated to complete these seemingly boring but actually very practical exercises, and he also firmly believed that this was the only way to become strong. Imagine 2 identical warrior professionals dueling in the Star Source world. Assuming that all conditions of the 2 people in the Star Source world are the same, but in the real world, one of them did not improve his attributes through self-training, while the other improved his attributes a little bit, then the final result can be imagined. The person who improved his attributes must win in the end. This is also an important reason why Shen Xingyan insists on training in the real world. After Shen Xingyan's body recovered a little, he did not stay in the strength area for too long. Instead, he went directly to the area where equipment for training agility was provided, and first moved his joints slightly according to the techniques taught in the school, and then began training. Agility training mainly focuses on speed and reaction. Shen Xingyan is very familiar with these projects. He adjusts the equipment to the most suitable intensity for his current condition. Under this condition, he can exercise without any stagnation. There are slightly more people training in the agility area. After all, the physical exertion and difficulty here are much easier than those in the strength area. There are also some high-level professionals among these people, and some even rich people who have extracted some attribute points from the Star Source world. They come here simply to stretch their muscles and have no intention of improving their attributes through exercise. After seeing the difficulty of Shen Xingyan's training, they knew that he was just a rookie who had just awakened for a while, so they didn't pay too much attention to him. After all, it has only been 10 days since the annual awakening ceremony, so it is normal for newbies to come here to train. However, when they accidentally noticed Shen Xingyan's hard-working spirit during exercise, they couldn't help but look at him with admiration. Although there are many newcomers after awakening, they rarely find newcomers who are so cruel to them. If they were at their stage, it would be difficult for them to make such exploitative moves. At this time, Shen Xingyan did not care about their thoughts. He just focused on improving himself while ensuring safety. The improvement in his strength attribute just now made him look forward to the final training results of his current agility attribute, and his requirements for himself were also greatly increased. This also made it possible for people around to see Shen Xingyan covered in sweat during breaks in his workout. Shen Xingyan's appearance made them shake their heads slightly and sigh in their hearts. Some of them couldn't help but sigh why they didn't have such a desperate spirit when he was young. This cheating immediately revealed the difference between him and others. After sighing, they also felt that Shen Xingyan's behavior seemed a bit silly from their perspective as people who have experienced it. After all, they have the powerful backing of the Star Source world. As their levels and resources accumulate, they will be able to extract attributes from it sooner or later. Why should they cling to this slight improvement in reality? It is better to use this time to study how to upgrade your level and make money. However, even though people around him think so, they will not take the initiative to dissuade a young person who is pursuing progress. After all, dissuading others requires qualifications. Under the guidance of Shen Xingyan, the others finished their training and left one after another. In the end, only Shen Xingyan persisted here. Just when it was almost over, that somewhat different feeling came over him again, causing Shen Xingyan's running speed to increase a little. The equipment that was considered extremely difficult for him just now does not seem that difficult. With the experience from last time, Shen Xingyan also knew what had happened, and a happy smile instantly appeared on his face. He increased the difficulty of the equipment a little bit and continued exercising until the training timer sounded, then he stopped. Shen Xingyan, panting heavily, immediately took out the Xing Yuan card to check it. Then, his face, which should have been full of fatigue, now became full of smiles. Just because the result of the check just now was exactly the same as he guessed, his original agility attribute of 10 points increased to 11 points as expected. Including the 1 point of strength attribute added 3 hours ago, his total attribute value increased by 2 points today. Although these 2 attribute values A were achieved due to his accumulation before awakening and training in the past 2 days, the result was that he increased his attributes by 2 points a day, which was an indisputable fact. This joyful feeling made Shen Xingyan, who should have been a little tired, not feel that tired at all. He even couldn't help wanting to swipe his card again to add time, but in the end his reason stopped him from doing so. Shen Xingyan walked towards the front desk while digesting the joy. He returned the timer to the front desk staff with a smile, said goodbye and hurried out of the training hall. It was almost time for his sister to get out of school, so he could just take her home with him. During this waiting period, Shen Xingyan tidied himself up, wiped off the sweat stains that had dried several times, and stood at the school gate like other parents waiting for his sister to appear. At this moment, Shen Xingyan looked just like the other parents, with different purposes and expressions. Chapter 53. Hey, brother, why are you here? Shen Xingyan had just walked out of the school gate and was about to rush home when she suddenly saw her brother's figure. She immediately shouted excitedly. Shen Xingyan came to Shen Xingyan's side, her excitement beyond words. Yesterday, when she learned that her brother was attacked by rats on his way back, she felt a little worried, but her worries were suppressed by the joy of the subsequent harvest. It was not until this morning when she was about to go to school that she suddenly thought of this incident and instinctively began to feel a little scared. She wanted to wake up her brother to accompany her to school. But after hesitating for a while, she decided to give up. She was sensible and knew that her brother was working hard enough farming in the Xingyan world, and she didn't want to trouble her brother for this reason. However, the area where they live is close to the border. There are not many people in this area, not to mention people who go to school like Shen Xingyan, who are even rarer. Shen Xingyan walked on the quiet road, but she was still more or less afraid in her heart, fearing that a disaster would suddenly jump out from the bushes around her. So she kept paying attention to the movements around her while walking, and only felt at ease when she arrived at the university. Now it was time to go home from school, and she had already made plans to run all the way home and leave the feeling of fear behind her completely. But before she started running, she actually saw her brother waiting for her at the door like other students' parents. This warm feeling made her instantly overjoyed, and the fear disappeared without a trace. I'm here to take you home. You can't go back and forth to school by yourself recently. Shen Xingyan looked at his sister who was smiling brightly. He also showed a gentle smile on his face. He gently rubbed his sister's little head and said with some doting. Although Shen Xingyan did not explain the reason in his previous sentence, Shen Xingyan knew what her brother was referring to. The brother and sister smiled at each other, and they both understood each other tacitly. You're just working so hard. After being busy with farming every day, you still have to think about my going to and from school. Shen Xingyan felt happy instinctively when she heard her brother say this, but after considering the current actual situation, she also felt a little distressed. Shen Xingyan felt comforted when she heard her sister's sensible words. She smiled and said, special cases require special treatment. Besides, it won't take up much time to send you to and from school. When we have money, we can move to live near the school. I'll feel relieved then. When saying these words, Shen Xingyan was already thinking about how to move after the harvest was completed, and he sighed in his heart. It seems that it is not easy for rich people to pretend to be poor. Shen Xingyan nodded heavily upon hearing this. It would be great if she could move near the school in the future. It's not just close to the school, but more importantly, it's safe. The number of people around here is much larger than that outside. After all, humans are social animals. The more people there are, the more at ease they feel. It's just that the price of this area is really expensive, and they are a bit stretched with their current strength. But since her brother has said these words, there must be a way to make it happen. This is a basic trust she has had in her brother over the years. The brother and sister walked and chatted slowly as they did before, heading home. Along the way, Shen Xingyan also reported on her achievements today, with a tone full of pride. Shen Xingyan also listened with a smile all the way, being a quiet listener, and occasionally praising his sister's excellence. The scene of the two of them talking and laughing seemed particularly alternative and warm in this place near the border where solemnity was the main tone. After returning home, Shen Xingyan went to the Xingyan world and summoned its 13th little skeleton. This time he came back to cook again. During the cooking, he took out a bottle of physical potion extracted from the Xingyan card and put it in his sister's dinner. Now that my sister's body is officially laying the foundation, this physical medicine will have a very significant effect on her who is in the growth stage. This is a good thing, but it's too expensive. When I have money in the future, I will let my sister drink this as water every day. Shen Xingyan couldn't help but start fantasizing. When the meal was ready and they started eating, Shen Xingyan didn't notice anything unusual. After all, the dosage of 10 ml is still too small, and the physical medicine is a colorless and odorless liquid, just like plain water, which makes it more concealed, and Shen Xingyan's good intentions were successfully implemented. After finishing the meal, Shen Xingyan chatted with her brother for a while, and then returned to her room to start her exercises before going to bed. At this time, she felt that her body was full of energy, and she became more and more energetic when exercising. But she didn't think about the medicine, she just thought it was because she had just eaten. Shen Xingyan also smiled and nodded after hearing the sounds of exercise in his sister's room. If the current situation continues, there is still great hope that my sister will awaken to full attributes in the future. Moreover, with the potions to lay the foundation for her, it will be much easier for her to improve after she awakens than for me. After returning to the room, Shen Xingyan took out a bottle of physical medicine, precisely controlled the dosage to 2 ml and poured it into his mouth. The instructions on the medicine clearly stated that the effect would be greater during exercise. His subsequent exercise time was also about 2 hours, and taking these doses was just enough to allow these drugs to exert their maximum effectiveness. After everything was ready, Shen Xingyan began to practice according to the training techniques taught by the school. The 2 attribute points he gained today made him more enthusiastic about exercising in reality. This kind of effort paid off, which made him feel very secure. More than 2 hours passed, and Shen Xingyan stopped exercising at the reminder of the alarm clock. This medicine is really effective. After 2 hours of exercise, I still feel full of energy. If it were before, I would have felt a little tired. It seems that the money was not wasted. Shen Xingyan thought with satisfaction, walking quietly towards the kitchen, marveling at the power of the potion. When I passed by my sister's room, I didn't hear any sound. I thought she had fallen asleep. My sister took the medicine and was in the stage of growing up. Even though she was asleep, the effect of the medicine was still affecting her. Shen Xingyan ate some food in the kitchen as a reserve. After returning to the room, he saw that the cooling time for entering the Xingyan world had been completed. He took out the Xingyan card without hesitation and connected his consciousness to it. Chapter 54. In the planting space, after Shen Xingyan appeared, he saw the little skeletons working on their own. This tranquil and natural scene, which seemed like a leisurely farming scene, made him feel very comfortable. His appearance, as usual, attracted the attention of Wang Ke and other little skeletons. Under the gazes of the little skeletons, Shen Xingyan nodded slightly and let them continue working. He himself went to the farmland to check the growth of crops and find out the gaps, making preparations in advance for the rapid growth that would occur after he used his professional skills. Shen Xingyan walked over to Wang Ke while checking, gently pressed its head with a small straw hat, and smiled slightly. My Captain Wang Ke, you have worked so hard to help me manage the farmland in such an orderly manner. You are really my lucky star. It seems that I still need to work harder to add more subordinates to you so that you can become a real skeleton captain. Although he knew that Wang Ke would definitely not hear what he said, he still said with a gentle smile. Then he continued to check the growth of the surrounding crops. At this time, the crops in the farmland have experienced 2 periods of 10% growth progress and 2 days of natural growth. The wheat has been growing for 4 days and has completed 2/5 of the total growth progress. It is now in the stage of bearing ears of wheat, and the growth is very gratifying. For potatoes, which have a growth period of 20 days, they have already grown for 6 days, completing 3/10 of the progress. At this time, the potato seedlings are lush and leafy, and their roots must have begun to develop towards producing potatoes. Shen Xingyan was very satisfied with the current situation. The wheat would be mature in 2 days and the potatoes would be ready for harvest in about 5 days. Then it would be time to test his previous guess. In order to break the record of the Star Source world and obtain rewards, he also privately checked the actual circumstances of previous record breaks. However, he found that the rewards received by those record breakers were nothing compared to his own, and most of them were short-term crops. Crops like wheat, which had a growth period of 10 days, were rare. It seems like the Xingyan world has its own record standard. After all, there are so many professionals, and there will always be someone who is the first to try something new. From this, Shen Xingyan couldn't help but guess that the longer the growth cycle of the crops, the richer the reward they would get after successfully breaking through a standard set by the Xingyan world and reaching a new record. If this is true, then it is really great news for him. And this idea can be verified within the remaining few days, which makes him start to look forward to it. While Shen Xingyan was checking the crops with satisfaction, Wang Ke tilted his little skull to glance at his master, and when he saw that his master did not give any new instructions, he continued to work. After Shen Xingyan checked the growth of the crops, seeing that there was still some time before his professional skills would cool down, he began to stroll around the farmland, like a wealthy landlord inspecting his own land. He would also greet the other little skeletons from time to time, regardless of whether they could understand or not. He would go up to them and give them some inspirational words, then show the look of a leader who cares about his subordinates, and then go to find the next little skeleton. The entire farmland was filled with his voice, making the originally quiet farmland a little more lively. Shen Xingyan can only express his true nature so directly in his own planting space, where there is a quiet and peaceful atmosphere and no deadly crisis. Strictly speaking, he is also a child who has just reached adulthood. Although his mentality has matured a lot due to life, the remaining youthfulness still needs to be vented from time to time so as not to make him become depressed. Not until the cooldown of his professional skills was over did Shen Xingyan put away his playful thoughts. He took out his novice walking stick and selected the current 5 acres of farmland as his target. The energy in his body began to be released crazily, acting on the land. Every time Shen Xingyan used his professional skills, he felt the energy running through his body. This feeling was very strange to him, and with the repeated use of large amounts of energy, his understanding of energy became more and more profound. As Shen Xingyan's professional skills began to take effect, all the crops in the farmland began to grow wildly, concentrating 1/10 of the total growth progress in this short period of time. Among them, potatoes showed the greatest change. Their branches began to extend at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the new leaves also quickly changed from tender green to dark green. In comparison, wheat is calmer. All its changes are concentrated in the ears, causing the number of grains in the ears to increase rapidly. Seeing the crops in front of him being fast-forwarded, Shen Xingyan once again marveled at the powerful professional skills, and at the same time felt that he was extremely lucky to have such powerful professional skills. When Shen Xingyan sighed, all the crops had completed their accelerated growth and returned to their normal growth state. Seeing this, Shen Xingyan rolled up his sleeves and prepared to start responding to the maintenance reminders from the Star Source world. The number of small skeletons now was completely sufficient to cope with the reminder frequency under normal circumstances. However, it was still a little difficult to deal with the frequency of prompts after casting a skill, so he had to join in. Only when the number of small skeletons increased in the future and the number of farmlands did not increase significantly, this situation would improve a lot. At this time, except for Shen Xingyan who was already prepared, the other experienced little skeletons immediately took a posture of readiness when they saw the situation in front of them. After all, every time such an abnormal situation occurred in the past, they would enter a busy state. Their subconscious mind has formed an inertial cognition of this, and they do not need Shen Xingyan to deliberately remind them. Under their gaze, the prompts above the farmland no longer appeared slowly as before, but appeared in an instant, prompting Shen Xingyan and others to resolve the problem quickly. Wang Ke, pass the message on and get to work. He picked up a hoe and started working. The other little skeletons also performed the same operation, except that their hoes were much shorter than Shen Xingyan's. While Shen Xingyan and the little skeletons were working hard together, some senior farmers had dark circles under their eyes and looked sleepy. They yawned and forced themselves to maintain their 1-acre wheat field. Chapter 55. The Star Source World's 2 consecutive announcements about wheat breaking records, as well as the enviable privilege rewards in the announcements, finally made these high-level farmers unable to suppress their inner impulses, and some of them were jealous and took action immediately. Even those old farmers who have been famous for a long time have begun to try to plant an acre of wheat to see what the difference is between this first-level crop and why they can get such generous rewards after breaking the record. You know, they had broken the Star Source World record before, but compared to long-term crops like wheat, they had only achieved it on a crop with a shorter growth period, and the rewards they received were just some advanced non-durable farm tools or potions that promoted crop growth, as well as a few acres of farmland. Things of high value had never appeared before, let alone any privileges, they had never even seen them. Connecting the contents of the 2 announcements, they discovered a common point and thought that wheat as a crop had some special characteristics that they didn't know about, or that someone had found a bug in this crop, which led to this result. But no matter what the reason is, they have to try it. After all, the reward is indeed too tempting. In order to ensure the wheat yield, they have been staying by the wheat for more than 2 days and have never left. It can be said that they are extremely conscientious. The reason they were able to hold out for so long was that after reaching their level, their stay in the Star Origin world was no longer restricted to the fixed 12 hours. The essence of 12 hours is a protective constraint for novice professionals. The mental strength of newly awakened professionals is inherently weak. Even someone with full attributes like Shen Xingyan is only slightly less weak. In this case, if these professionals stay in the Star Source world for too long, their already fragile spirits can easily suffer irreparable trauma. The reason why people know that the newcomer will have this result is all thanks to a rich second generation who had just awakened and relied on his parents being combat professionals and having money at home to go directly to the Xing Yuan Mall to purchase the privilege of extending his stay. After fighting in the Star Source world for 2 days and 2 nights, when his consciousness returned to reality, he fell into a coma. When he was rescued, his mental strength, which was only 8 points, was reduced by 3 points, and it was a permanent reduction. This result also makes people realize the essential intention of this restriction. After the professional level reaches 20, the Star Source world will automatically lift this restriction. After all, after reaching level 20, even if the professional does not actively increase the points in the spiritual attributes will naturally improve as the level increases. With a spiritual attribute of more than 20 points, one already has the conditions to break free from the restrictions. Although after the mental power is exhausted, without special privileges like the second generation of the rich, they will also receive the same treatment as the Star Wish world and be kicked out directly, but theoretically, as long as the mental power is not exhausted, they can stay in the Star Source world forever. However, theory is only theory, and it is difficult to implement in practice. After all, humans have innate limitations. Once the consumption of mental energy reaches a threshold, the effect of the medicine that restores the spirit will become weaker and weaker. This is the case with today's senior professional farmers. In more than 2 days, taking into account the advanced professional skills that can greatly increase the growth rate of plants, they have actually been taking care of the wheat for more than 3 days, almost 4 days. But after such a long period of sleeplessness, their spirits were beginning to fail. It has reached a point where no external objects can be used to recover, and neither food nor spiritual potions have much effect. Moreover, even if the spirit is restored through special means, the rate of mental consumption will decline even more sharply afterwards. Human limitations will be infinitely magnified at this moment. Now they are in urgent need of sleep to restore their mental and physical strength, but how can they be willing to do that? After all, the experiment is almost halfway through. If they don't persevere at this point, won't all their efforts be in vain? At this time, they began to try every possible way to see if they could hold on a little longer. After all, the longer they held on, the greater their hope of breaking the record. However, the reality is quite cruel. Some people are almost exhausted physically and mentally while working. Without any recovery measures, the Star Source world has taken coercive measures against them and directly kicked them out. The moment they were kicked out, they couldn't help but sigh, what kind of people can break the record of wheat seeds with a 10-day growth cycle? What kind of high-level professionals are these people? This phenomenon happens from time to time throughout the Star Source world. Those who were kicked out no longer have any hope that Xiaomei will break the record. After all, these senior farmers' experience shows that it is wishful thinking to achieve the harvest recorded in the records with the current level of labor. Unless they can quickly recover their mental strength after leaving the Star Source world, and quickly return to the planting space to control the occurrence of the task stagnation phenomenon in time, there is hope of breaking the record. However, up to now, no one has heard of anyone being able to do this. After all, it has only been more than 100 years since the explosion of atomic energy, and the time for human growth is still too short. That's why they have this doubt. What kind of people can accomplish this impossible thing? They really want to know what kind of people or organization these are. I still couldn't hold on. I thought there was some flaw in the wheat seed. I took it for granted. Alas, I'm getting old. An old man in simple clothes shook his head and sighed, and also withdrew from the star source world. What on earth is the reason? Why didn't the wheat I planted have any bugs? How did those people find out? Damn it! The middle-aged man in gorgeous clothes could no longer hold on and kept exuding fragrance towards the wheat he was planting. With all my current attributes added to my mental strength, I can only hold on until the day after tomorrow before I can no longer hold on. The result is only to increase the wheat yield to a relatively high level, but it is unlikely to last until the wheat matures. Let's give it a try and see how much the final yield can be. An old man with a calm face felt his spirit slipping away. After a rough estimate, he shook his head slightly and was not very optimistic about the final result. Chapter 56. While all the professional farmers were lamenting about these people or the mysterious organization, Shen Xingyan, the instigator, was happily busy maintaining his own farmland. His state was totally incomparable to those of high-level farmers. Despite the rapid attack of the star source prompts, he still had a feeling of strolling in the garden. After all, he has a group of hard-working little skeletons who work tirelessly, and this is the source of his confidence. After picking up Shen Xingyan today, he saw that his innate skill had completed its cooldown, so he quickly entered the star source world. After releasing his skills and going through a unearthed ceremony, he successfully summoned his 13th little skeleton. Shen Xingyan just took a look at the new little skeletons and found that the newly summoned little skeletons looked quite strong. Although the attributes of the little skeletons were the same, he couldn't help but wonder, could it be that he had summoned all the weak little skeletons? Smiling and shaking his head, Shen Xingyan discarded his ridiculous idea, nodded at the new little skeleton, and then didn't care about it much. He continued to give it to Wang Ke for a pre-job training as usual, and returned to the real world. At this time, while working, he was sighing that with the presence of Wang Ke, he really saved a lot of trouble. Looking at Wang Ke who was receiving training, he felt very satisfied. This capable person was indeed very capable. Wang Ke is now very adept at training new skeletons, and his efficiency is even much higher than that of Shen Xingyan. It wasn't long before the new little skeletons officially started to work, and the number of people busy in the 5 acres of farmland reached a new high, reaching 14 including Shen Xingyan. The 14 laborers were distributed in the farmland in an orderly manner, each busy with farm work, without any sign of chaos. Each worker has his or her own duties and there is a clear division of the area under his or her management. And it was also thanks to Wang Ke's ability to perfectly convey Shen Xingyan's instructions, otherwise such a harmonious scene would have required Shen Xingyan to put in a lot of effort to achieve. Shen Xingyan and his team continued working at this pace for more than an hour, and the speed at which maintenance prompts appeared began to slow down. Looking at these maintenance prompts whose threats had been greatly reduced, after ending the current maintenance prompt, Shen Xingyan also made a rough estimate. He felt that at this pace, the little skeletons would be able to complete the farm work independently and would not need him as an extra laborer. Then he stopped and was happy to have some free time, so he handed over all the affairs to his captain Wang Ke, who was in full charge of the matter. He came to the old place, assumed a comfortable posture, set the alarm for 7 o'clock, and closed his eyes to rest in this quiet and peaceful field. 7 o'clock is just the right time for him to get enough rest, or he needs to return to the real world to cook for his sister and send her to school. Shen Xingyan was exhausted from the real world, and soon his breathing began to slowly stabilize, and he had obviously entered a state of deep sleep. While he was resting, the little skeletons received another maintenance reminder and resolutely carried out their master's instructions without any intention of slacking off. Wang Ke and other little skeletons who were working in the fields were very confused about their master's weird words and deeds, which required him to lie on the ground from time to time. After all, in their ideology, there has never been a concept of sleep, which is also the main characteristic of most low-level undead creatures. However, in the intervals between maintenance tasks, they would still, under the leadership of Wang Ke, surround Shen Xingyan and play the role of protecting their master. This is an instinct ingrained in their bones. Shen Xingyan also slept very peacefully under this repeated protection. But it is not like the outside world. Although there have not been any major disasters for many years, it always feels like there is a sword hanging over your head that may fall at any time, making people feel uneasy. Even when they are resting, they subconsciously keep a string in mind. In such a safe environment, Shen Xingyan was not awakened from his sweet dream until the alarm clock rang. Shen Xingyan felt refreshed after waking up. When he saw the little skeletons standing around him, he smiled with satisfaction. After instructing Wang Ke and other little skeletons about the next task, he left the Xing Yuan world and returned to reality. He quickly walked into the kitchen and started making breakfast for the brother and sister. Shen Xingyan, who had just woken up, rubbed her eyes and was about to get up, but was surprised to find that her body felt surprisingly comfortable. You know, she is in the stage of growing up now. Every time she wakes up in the morning, she always feels like there is a hungry beast roaring wildly in her body, urging her to eat quickly. But this time, she didn't feel that way at all, just a little hungry. This made Shen Xingyan, who didn't know she had taken a physical medicine, confused, but also felt extremely happy. After Shen Xingyan walked out of the room, as expected, she saw her brother busy cooking in the kitchen. She felt warm in her heart and was proud of her brother who always kept his word. Get up, wash up and have dinner. After hearing the noise outside, Shen Xingyan turned around and saw his sister and reminded her quickly, with a loving look on his face. Upon hearing this, Shen Xingyan nodded obediently and quickly packed up. During the meal, Shen Xingyan also asked about the problems his sister encountered at this stage. As a prospective graduate with excellent academic performance, he has a say in guiding his sister's studies. The brother and sister ended their breakfast time with this academic exchange. After Shen Xingyan sent his sister to school as promised, he did not immediately return home to continue exercising. Instead, they walked to the free market not far away to look for houses around the school that they could rent. Shen Xingyan felt that he had some savings now, and it was necessary to provide a relatively safe environment for the two of them. Even if it weren't for the big rat incident, he also planned to move to a new house. After all, that sparsely populated area was indeed unsafe. Although now is not the time to show off his financial strength, it would be good to ask in advance so that he can have a rough idea. Shen Xingyan walked to a store with the word real estate written on it, looked at the posters in front of the store with information about various properties, and began to check them carefully. Chapter 57. The rent around here is really not cheap. 1 month's rent costs 4 silver coins. This amount of money is equivalent to 3 wheat harvests for an ordinary farmer. Shen Xingyan sighed as he looked at the rental information above. If he was still an ordinary farmer, he would probably be discouraged when seeing the price. After all, most of the money earned by hard work in a month is still spent on the house, so anyone would definitely have strong resistance. However, considering Shen Xingyan's current worth and future earning potential, he feels that this price is within his acceptable range. Moreover, as long as the brother and sister are safe, there will be more possibilities in the future, so this money is not wasted. He then looked at a few similar properties and got a general idea of €1 the rental market in the area. When he learned that the rent of school district housing near schools reached 10 silver coins per month, even a future wealthy person like Shen Xingyan couldn't help but be amazed. He couldn't help but think, if people from outside weren't afraid of being unsafe on the main road at night, they would probably choose to sleep on the streets here. Shen Xingyan sighed and shook his head. After looking at all the items one by one, he did not choose to go into the store to ask, but left directly. After all, he looks like an ordinary farmer now. Even if he pretends to be gritting his teeth and forcing the rent, it will easily arouse suspicion. After all, only 13 days have passed since I awakened to the farmer profession. As an ordinary farmer, I can't save enough money for a month's rent here during this time. Helplessly, Shen Xingyan could only wait 10 days to discuss the rental price. After leaving the real estate agency, Shen Xingyan started to wander around the free market. When he was in school, he seldom came to shop at the market even though it was not far from the school because he was short of money. This time it was a rare opportunity for him to come here, so he checked it out carefully. The entire free market in the northern district is more like a very short street than a market. There are not many people setting up stalls and selling things here. At first glance, it feels a bit sparse and cannot be compared with the bustling city of Xingyuan world. Shen Xingyan had checked out such a large market in no time. Most of the items on sale were the body materials of disasters killed outside the world, as well as the exotic resources collected outside the world. Shen Xingyan had never seen some of these things before. After all, the information in school textbooks was not that comprehensive. Due to the existence of military merits and the high price the Foundation pays to recover high-level extraterritorial resources including disasters, the income in the real world is far higher than their income in the star source world. Therefore, capable professionals go outside the world very frequently, and from time to time they bring back some high-value items to buy a base, and sell some low-value items to the base at a low price, or sell them at the market like now. There are also some equipment and potions sold throughout the market. Although these things can be extracted from the star source world, the price here is still more affordable. When Shen Xingyan looked at the disaster meat with nutritional value, he also subconsciously stopped. My sister is in the growing stage now and needs to supplement nutrition. The meat processed by the butcher can obviously meet this need. But after thinking about it, he gave up, thinking it would be safer to extract it secretly from the star source world. There would be no risk of being discovered, and the quality of the meat would also be guaranteed. Although the things here are more affordable, he is not short of money now and does not care about these small amounts of money. Just when he was about to go back to continue exercising, he suddenly found a bookstore. Instantly, he thought of his perception skill that had completed its cooldown but had not yet been used. Before, I was busy exercising and improving my physical fitness at school, but I rarely came into contact with martial arts. Moreover, the school considers martial arts to be something that is easy to learn but difficult to master, and encourages students to study according to the prompts on the panel after awakening. This way, the improvement will be much faster than before awakening, and it also saves a lot of time. Martial arts can bring out the advantages of attributes more fully, and in the future, when encountering some primary disasters, one will have a certain self-protection ability. Go inside and see if there are any replica martial arts. With the magical skill of perceiving skills, I think learning will be much faster. Shen Xingyan thought so in his heart and stepped in naturally. At this time, an old man who was leaning on a recliner at the door glanced at Shen Xingyan who came in, and seemed to have seen through his intentions. He greeted him in a hoarse voice. The reprint of the martial arts book is on the bookshelf on the far right. The price is written on it. Go and check it out for yourself. The old man said no more after he finished speaking, and had no intention of getting up to entertain the guests. He continued to lie there reading the book in his hands. When Shen Xingyan heard what the old man said, he paused and looked over in surprise. He was amazed at the old man's ability to predict the future. He wanted to have a conversation with this experienced old man, but seeing that the other party had no intention of paying any attention to him, he did not bother himself. I sighed in my heart. It seems that practice makes perfect is applicable to every profession. This old man also has a keen eye. Following the old man's instructions, Shen Xingyan went directly to the bookshelf on the far right. Sure enough, a bunch of brand new martial arts books were placed there. At a glance, he could tell that they were all reprints. After taking a look at the prices of these martial arts, I found that they are not very expensive, ranging from tens of copper coins to hundreds of copper coins. The cost of this thing itself is not very high, and they are all replicas of ordinary martial arts, so the price is still within a reasonable range. Shen Xingyan checked them one by one. Now he did not have enough physical attributes and money to learn those advanced alienated martial arts. He could only learn some ordinary martial arts to improve his combat ability. Moreover, ordinary martial arts can produce some remarkable phenomena when practiced to a high level. Shen Xingyan chose 3 types of martial arts based on his current conditions. One type is for longer distances, such as guns, sticks, etc. It is said that an inch longer is an inch stronger, so this type of martial arts is necessary. The second type is close combat, the kind that involves bare-handed fighting, and the other type is footwork, which has a certain bonus to speed. The 3 types of martial arts are combined together. If you can't defeat the opponent at a long distance, you can go up for hand-to-hand combat. If you can't win in hand-to-hand combat, you can only run away. Shen Xingyan calls it the life-saving 3-piece set. After making up his mind, Shen Xingyan began to search among these 3 types of martial arts. After watching it over and over again, I feel that all the martial arts are basically the same, with just some different emphases. Then I stopped hesitating and randomly selected 3 books from these 3 categories. Chapter 58. The name of the long-distance martial art that Shen Xingyan chose sounds quite intimidating. It is called the Demon Subduing Stick. Its characteristics are swift stick techniques, mainly attacking, but also focusing on defense, mainly focusing on the addition of strength, combined with agility. It can achieve a repressive situation of fast against fast. When practiced to a deep level, the stick force will cooperate with the original energy to produce a powerful shock wave, which can be used for attack and defense. The martial art of choice for close combat is the Dragon Elephant Fist, which also has the characteristics of both offense and defense. It is a panacea-type boxing technique that can greatly enhance speed and strength. Long-term training can also have a certain promoting effect on physical and mental fitness. It is said that when one's realm is raised to the minor success realm, combined with the original energy in the body will be surrounded by the faint shape of a dragon and elephant, which will greatly enhance defense and offense. Although it is very comprehensive, its shortcomings are also obvious, that is, there is no particularly outstanding aspect. As for the more important footwork, he chose the more expensive wind step, which is much faster in increasing speed than other footwork skills. The bonus to agility is the best among the similar martial arts here. After reaching the minor success level, its speed is greatly improved and some after-images of the character will be produced. After all, this is the last line of defense to save one's life, and Shen Xingyan still feels that it cannot be lost. After selecting the 3 martial arts books, Shen Xingyan did not look at other martial arts books anymore, but walked directly to the door with the 3 books, ready to check out and leave. At this time, the old gentleman who seemed to be leisurely at the door sat up when he saw this, picked up the 3 books handed over by Shen Xingyan and took a look at them. He looked at Shen Xingyan, whose face was full of youthfulness, and couldn't help but shook his head slightly, as if talking to himself, sighing, young people are really naive. They don't know the principle of biting off more than they can chew, and bought 3 books at a time. After he finished speaking, the old man also looked at the 3 books and said in a hoarse accent, a total of 860 copper coins, I'll give you a discount, 850. After the old man reported a number, the 3 books automatically flew away from his hands and returned to Shen Xingyan's hands. At the same time, a Xingyan card automatically appeared next to Shen Xingyan, and the old man himself continued to lean back in the recliner and read the book. Shen Xingyan also understood the meaning of the old man's words that seemed to be talking to himself just now. After all, it is a well-known fact that martial arts are easy to learn but difficult to improve. Now that he has bought 3 martial arts books at one time, it does seem a bit greedy to outsiders. Only Shen Xingyan himself is aware of his own abilities. With the perception skill, he can currently increase his comprehension by 9 points within an hour, reaching a terrifying value of 17 points. The effect it produces is not simply a matter of 1 + 1 = 2. If Shen Xingyan didn't need too many martial arts and didn't want to attract too much attention, he wouldn't have bought only these 3 books. He did not explain much to the old gentleman, and even thought it was good that the old gentleman thought so. Now Shen Xingyan's attention was attracted by the 3 books in his hand and the Xingyan card that appeared beside him. After instantly figuring out the reason why this miraculous thing happened, he couldn't help but reveal a look of envy in his eyes. At the same time, he also realized that this seemingly lazy old man was actually someone who was not someone to be trifled with. When he was in school before, he had heard that when a professional's mental power reached a certain level, he could release it to control objects. The old man could manipulate books and star source cards so casually, which showed how high his mental power had reached. Moreover, to a young man like Shen Xingyan, the old man's telekinesis just now seemed indescribably handsome, which made him fantasize. When your mental power becomes even stronger in the future, you can even directly control your body to float in the air, reaching the level of a base commander. However, Shen Xingyan was just thinking about it. At this stage, he was completely unable to do such an operation. He could only use the instinctive setting of the star source card to summon the card into his hand. Shen Xingyan put away his yearning thoughts and looked at the old man in front of him. He felt that the other party had become mysterious, giving people a feeling of a hermit. It's better to have less contact with such a master. It would be disastrous if the other party discovered my unusualness from the details. Shen Xingyan's heart suddenly went on alarm. He nodded to the old man to express his gratitude, and then touched him with the Xingyan card in his hand. With the successful payment of 850 copper coins, the old man's Xingyan card instantly disappeared from the spot, leaving only Shen Xingyan's right hand holding the card floating in the air. Shen Xingyan didn't feel embarrassed at all. Respecting the elderly and loving the young were traditional virtues of the base. He didn't say anything more and just turned around and left the bookstore, walking towards home. It was not until this time that the old man looked up at Shen Xingyan's back, sighed slightly and then calmed down and continued reading. Shen Xingyan did not stop anywhere else along the way and went straight back home. Before learning martial arts, he moved his body a little to warm it up in advance. Then he didn't wait any longer and picked up the book on Dragon Elephant Fist to start learning. He put the book on Demon Subduing Stick aside temporarily due to limited conditions. Shen Xingyan checked the attributes of his own in the Xingyan card, and his gaze slowly rested on the skill of perception. His mind moved slightly, and the perception skill was instantly activated. His corresponding comprehension value also increased to 17 points, more than double his original attribute of 8 points. At this moment, Shen Xingyan only felt that his mind became clear in an instant, as if every weak thought could be amplified geometrically. His thoughts were so fast that even he himself was astonished. Although this was the second time he used the skill of perception, this feeling, as if he had a god's perspective, was indeed too novel for him. The first time he used the perception skill, he did not have the chance to fully experience this feeling due to the urgency of the situation. But this time he really experienced it. I couldn't help but sigh in my heart, if I had such understanding when I was in school, I wouldn't have to work so hard. After savoring this wonderful feeling, Shen Xingyan did not delay any longer and directly picked up the Dragon Elephant Fist manual in his hand and began to read it. The Dragon Elephant Fist, which consists of the 5 basic boxing techniques of chop, collapse, drill, cannon and horizontal, was quickly understood in Shen Xingyan's brain as he read it and with the help of his super high comprehension value. As he read deeper, it seemed as if a little man began to appear in his mind, practicing this set of boxing techniques over and over again. Gradually, the little man became more and more fluent from the initial awkwardness during the rehearsal. The movements performed by the little man gradually become simple and rustic, his posture is upright and steady, his hands and feet are coordinated, and the movements he practices are becoming more and more swift and powerful. Chapter 59. Sure enough, there are still some mistakes in the replica martial arts. Fortunately, my understanding is high enough now, and I can easily identify the mistakes in the boxing manual and correct them. Otherwise, if you continue to practice according to those wrong directions, your body will inevitably suffer in the future. Shen Xingyan couldn't help shaking his head while reading the boxing manual, and marked the mistakes. Regarding this problem with the boxing manual, he would not go to the old gentleman to ask for an explanation. After all, this is a common problem in all replica martial arts, and it is also a phenomenon agreed upon by people and there is no way to avoid it. There is no other way unless you spend a lot of money to buy the original martial arts, or have enough ability to correct those mistakes. After Shen Xingyan sighed, he did not dwell on this aspect any further, but instead put all his thoughts into the boxing manual. With the improvement of his understanding, Shen Xingyan's reading speed has made a qualitative leap compared to usual times when he needs to correct errors in the boxing manual. After Shen Xingyan finished reading the boxing manual at such a high speed, he also understood the core content of this set of boxing. The practice speed of the little man in his mind became faster and faster, and his movements became more and more natural and agile. Shen Xingyan's body also began to move, but his movements were not as smooth as those of the little man in his mind. He felt as if his brain had reacted but his body was still stuck in place. His brain told him he knew, but his body was protesting, I didn't know. Is this the legendary situation where the body cannot keep up with the mind? This novel feeling made Shen Xingyan feel a little amused. However, this somewhat incongruous phenomenon only lasted for a moment. The improvement in his understanding was not just aimed at the brain, but at Shen Xingyan's entire body. He was also able to keenly perceive the inharmonious movements of Shen Xingyan's body and make corresponding adjustments. After practicing this technique several times, Shen Xingyan's body became more and more adapted to the rhythm of Xingyan. Gradually, the muscle memory of the body began to take effect, and Xingyan became more and more handy in Shen Xingyan's hands. His movements gradually became closer and closer to the movements of the little man in his mind, and the spirit was basically the same. At this moment, Shen Xingyan suddenly felt a faint sound like porcelain breaking coming from his body. At the same time, the Xingyan movements he was practicing also changed, becoming more natural and smooth. The speed of body movement and the power of punching have also been significantly improved. Shen Xingyan, who saw this, knew something in his heart, and immediately stopped what he was doing. With a slight thought, the star source card appeared in his hand. He placed it on his forehead and checked his own attributes: name, Shen Xingyan No 1181204331-9527 Occupation, farmer professional skill, consumes a certain amount of energy points to increase the growth rate of crops within the specified range by 10%. The larger the range, the more energy points are consumed. The interval is 10 hours and the skill cooldown is 24 hours. Strength, 11 points agility, 11 points constitution, 12 points spirit, 10 points HP, 120/120 points power, 0/18 points physical strength, 9/12 points physical attack, 11 points spell attack, 10 points defense, 12 points speed, 11 o'clock talent, summon a skeleton monster with all attributes of 1 to fight, cooling time 24 hours, comprehension, consume a corresponding amount of energy to increase the comprehension value by a corresponding amount, which lasts for 1 hour. The skill cooldown time is 24 hours. The current comprehension value is 17 points. Dragon Elephant Fist. A brief introduction after the martial arts is activated, it consumes the corresponding physical strength and can temporarily gain strength +1 and agility +1. Current progress, 1% money, 0 gold 48 silver 135 bronze entrance to Star World. Shen Xingyan directly skipped the other attributes that had already been calculated, and looked directly at the bottom of the perception skill, the skill that had not been there before but suddenly appeared now, Dragon Elephant Fist. As I expected, with the help of 17 points of enlightenment, it only took me more than half an hour to master the Dragon Elephant Fist. The result in front of him also verified Shen Xingyan's idea just now. After seeing this skill, a smile full of surprise began to appear on his face. According to his understanding, if one wants to master a martial art to the point of just beginning, a genius with better aptitude would need 10 days to half a month to achieve the goal. If one has poor aptitude, it is hard to say, and it might take even a year and a half. This is why teachers in school do not advocate practicing martial arts too early. After all, before awakening, without the star source card to check attributes, no one can figure out what it takes to be qualified in practicing martial arts, and the criteria for judgment are difficult to define. Moreover, before awakening is a good time to lay the foundation. If you waste a lot of time on martial arts that only improve temporary attributes, it will be tantamount to destroying your foundation. However, no one could be like him, reaching the entry level of martial arts in such a short time. If other people knew about this, they would probably be filled with envy and jealousy. Fortunately, there was no record-breaking announcement in the real world, otherwise, with his speed, it would probably cause another uproar. However, Shen Xingyan was not surprised by the result. After all, with such a high level of understanding, it was a very reasonable thing for him to reach this level with such an ordinary martial art. If the boxing manual he bought was not a replica, which required him to comprehend and correct the mistakes in it at the same time, otherwise, his speed of breaking through the entry stage would be even faster. After a moment of contented thinking, Shen Xingyan looked at the martial arts in his attribute column and liked them more and more. Although the attributes of the Dragon Elephant Fist are not improved much when you first learn it, with only a bonus of 2 attribute points, but as the progress is improved, the extent of the attribute improvement in the future will definitely be improved accordingly. According to the division of martial arts realms described by the school, there are initial glimpse, advanced level, minor success, major success, and the perfect realm, which only a few people have reached now. However, Shen Xingyan, who possesses the skill of perception, has full confidence in improving his realm. After all, as the value of his energy increases in the future, his comprehension will increase every time he uses his perception skills, and correspondingly, it will become much easier to break through the realm of martial arts. Chapter 60. At this time, Shen Xingyan's heart was full of fighting spirit. He quickly put away the star source card. While there was still some time left to comprehend the skills, he also took the time to consolidate the Dragon Elephant Fist. Shen Xingyan continued to practice like this until the time for perception was over, then he stopped. As the comprehension bonus provided by the perception skill disappeared, Shen Xingyan's comprehension value returned to 8 points. The little man in his brain also disappeared instantly, and he returned to his normal thinking speed. Shen Xingyan let out a deep breath, calmed himself down, and wiped the sweat off his face. The Dragon Elephant Fist is still quite physically demanding to use after getting started. Even though he was just practicing it and didn't fully exert his strength, he still felt that his strength decreased a lot during the practice. After feeling the condition of his body, Shen Xingyan took out the Shen Yuan card to check the progress of the Dragon Elephant Fist. I found that it has reached a gratifying 23%. If I use the perception skill again tomorrow, it is very likely that I can raise the Dragon Elephant Fist to a higher level. Shen Xingyan nodded slightly. He was quite satisfied with the current result. After all, it only took him an hour to improve his Dragon Elephant Fist from when he first started to practice it to 23% of his entry level. This achievement is huge, and if he told this story, no one would believe it. Shen Xingyan rested for a while, then went to the kitchen to eat something to restore his strength. After recovering his severely depleted strength to a certain extent, he did not sit idle and started exercising directly. Compared to the temporary enhancement of martial arts attributes to cope with combat, he is more interested in the bodybuilding movements taught in school. Although it is quite difficult to improve the body and requires persistence over time, the improvement is permanent, giving him a more solid feeling. Shen Xingyan thought that after his martial arts skills reached a certain level, he would try to use his perception skills on these movements to see if there would be any different effects. The boring body training began. For Shen Xingyan, it was already a commonplace. More than 10 years of training had already formed a strong antibody for him. Far from feeling boring, he felt that such time was very fulfilling. After several hours of exercise, Shen Xingyan stopped as it was almost noon. While lying in bed resting, his consciousness returned to his own planting space in the Star Source world through the Star Source card. He first checked the crops in his planting space like a farmer. Thanks to the hard work of Wang Ke and the others, the crops grew more and more vigorously. He nodded with satisfaction. Then, through the consciousness connection with the little skeletons, he praised this group of his employees, praising their efforts and encouraging them to keep up the good work. During the period, emphasis was placed on Wang Ke's position as captain to help him establish his prestige. After some instructions, he handed the farmland to Wang Ke for management. He then left the planting space and came to the small village where he had just entered the Shen Yuan world. Don't miss it if you pass by. There are all kinds of monster materials here. Even if you don't want to buy them, come and take a look. The equipment is on sale. It's a big sale. As long as you dare to bid. I just got some rabbit meat, it's still fresh. I'll take it home and cook it. It'll taste delicious no matter how you eat it. As soon as I arrived at this bustling street, all kinds of shouting sounds came one after another around my ears. Since Xingyuan Mall's purchase price for supplies is much lower than its selling price, many people feel that it is not cost-effective to sell to Xingyuan Mall, so they simply set up stalls to sell them themselves, cutting out the middlemen who can make a profit from the price difference. This also gave rise to a new profession, businessmen. However, this profession is not obtained through awakening, but is just a spontaneous behavior of human beings. It has not been recognized by the star source world, let alone any bonus. Looking at the lively scene in front of him, Shen Xingyan was moved again. After shaking his head slightly, he also started to walk around. The main purpose of his trip was to obtain some meat and extract it to the real world, to increase the nutrition for himself and his sister while also changing the taste. Although ordinary food can fill the stomach and restore physical strength, the duration of the effect is not long and cannot be compared with monster meat which contains rich energy. Shen Xingyan came to the stall that was selling rabbit meat, and saw that in addition to rabbit meat, there was also chicken and squirrel meat on the table, all of which were relatively low-level monsters. Hello, what kind of meat do you like? This is the best quality, the meat is very good. If you want more, I can give you a discount. When the stall owner saw Shen Xingyan stopping in front of the stall, he immediately greeted him warmly. He obviously did not look down on Shen Xingyan because of his peasant outfit. After all, he bought low-quality goods and his main customers were people like Shen Xingyan. How much is your rabbit meat? Shen Xingyan said as he looked at the meat. He found that it was of ordinary quality and had an estimated price in his mind. It's very cheap, only 130 copper coins per piece, which is 20 copper coins cheaper than Xingyuan Mall. You won't suffer a loss or be cheated. How much do you want? The stall owner looked at Shen Xingyan enthusiastically and introduced him eloquently. Shen Xingyan calculated silently in his heart and felt that it was quite cost-effective. These pieces of meat were dropped by Xingyuan World after hunting rabbits. Each piece weighed about 1 kilogram, which was enough for the two brothers and sisters to use for a day. Moreover, there is no such thing as malicious deception in the star source world. After all, the attributes of things can be seen at a glance. Although he thought so in his mind, Shen Xingyan had no intention of buying it immediately. Instead, he wanted to go out into the wild to take a look. After all, he had been awakened for more than 10 days and had not yet stepped out of the village. Let's see how his level 5 attributes and his beginner's boxing skills can be used to deal with wild monsters outside. At the same time, let's try our luck. It would be great if we can get some meat. Shen Xingyan nodded slightly at the stall owner and said, let me take another look. Then he left. Don't go, I'll give you another 10 copper coins off, how about 120 copper coins, don't go. Despite the stall owner's repeated requests to stay, Shen Xingyan left the busy street and walked out of the village. You have left the safe area, please pay attention to your surroundings. Shen Xingyan received a reminder from Xingyuan just after leaving the village and began to pay attention to the surrounding environment. Chapter 61. The wilderness of the star source world can be said to be a place where danger and opportunity coexist. Countless combat professionals are fighting here just to get enough resources to improve their own strength. Of course, there are also a very small number of professional life people who appear here for various purposes, and Shen Xingyan is one of them. At this time, Shen Xingyan, dressed as a farmer, stood out in the wild. Look, the farmer actually appears in the wild, how rare. A combat professional who was resting to recover his strength said to the people around him with a playful look on his face, and he did not deliberately control the volume so that people around him could hear it. Hearing this, the professionals who were collecting materials in the low-level monster area looked towards Shen Xingyan, and after seeing his shabby outfit, they also laughed. While they were happy about Shen Xingyan's appearance, they also felt it was a bit novel. After all, farmers did not have as much free time as other professions. They basically spent all their time working in their planting spaces and rarely appeared in front of the public, let alone in the wild. This is undoubtedly a very interesting thing for them who have been killing monsters in the wild for a long time. I guess he's a newbie. He didn't know he had to rush to plant a batch of seeds right after the harvest. Instead, he thought he had some spare money, so he came out for a stroll to see the scenery outside. The companion at the side obviously knew how to analyze the situation. He replied with a confident look on his face, and his tone also sounded like the wisdom of a person who had experienced it. Sparks starting a prairie fire? This nickname should come from the words of a great teacher in ancient times. It seems that this young man is quite knowledgeable about ancient culture. It's a pity that he awakened a profession. The nickname above Shen Xingyan's head also attracted one person's attention. While he sighed on his face, his heart was filled with a feeling of pride. After all, combat professionals are the protagonists of this era. No matter how talented or knowledgeable they are, their path is destined to be difficult after awakening to their life professions, and their future achievements will never be as good as theirs. Shen Xingyan, who came to the low-level monster area in the wild, also saw them and let down his guard a little. After all, being in a crowded place would give him some psychological comfort. Although there are fights between professionals in the unsafe areas of the star source world, most of them are due to disputes over pride, killing people for treasures, etc. In the absence of grudges and special temptations, it is generally safer. Moreover, the party that takes action first will be punished by having their login period restricted in the star source world. For professionals, taking action on their own will not be worth the cost. Shen Xingyan looked at the group of people who were killing monsters in the area at this time, and from the equipment they were wearing and the time, he had some considerations in his mind. I have heard before that there is a group of people called junior gold farmers in the Xingyan world. Most of them want to slowly increase their experience while earning money by mining materials. They hang out in low-level areas for a long time, just like the stall owner just now, immersed in their own comfort zone. After all, although high-level monsters have high experience points and considerable benefits, they also consume a lot of energy. They require close cooperation like Chu Wei's team, or the assistance of high-level professionals, to gain corresponding benefits from monsters whose strength is higher than that of professionals of the same level. However, these big golden men do not need to consider these problems. They only hunt monsters with lower attributes than them. This ensures safety and a stable daily income. Although the experience points and items dropped are relatively low, it is efficient and risk-free, which is an important reason why most people choose this method. Shen Xingyan also heard their comments about him, and he didn't care about their jokes. After all, he had been accustomed to other people's strange looks since he was a child, and a strong antibody had long been formed in his mind. He walked up to a rabbit without paying attention to anyone around him, and checked the rabbit's attributes: name, Angry Giant Rabbit level, 1 skill, bite, increases 5 points of physical attack power for a single attack on the target, with a 10% chance of triggering bleeding effect, skill cooldown of 5 seconds strength, 12 points agility, 10 points constitution, 10 points spirit, 10 points HP, 100/100 points physical attack, 12 points spell attack, 10 points defense, 10 points speed, 10 points. Talent skill, fast movement, increases movement speed by 10%, lasts for 5 seconds, cooldown time is 2 minutes. Shen Xingyan looked at the attributes of the rabbit in front of him and nodded slightly. It was not much different from what he had learned in school before. He had heard a long time ago that the lowest level monsters in the Star Source world were stronger than the newly awakened humans. Now that the facts were before him, he also confirmed this rumor. The four-dimensional attributes of a lowest level rabbit are 2 points higher in strength than those of a professional with full attribute awakening, which made him sigh. This is indeed an era where humans are inferior to animals. The physical fitness that I have trained day and night is not even as good as that of a first-level rabbit. This has to be said to be a very discouraging thing. Fortunately, I have now reached level 5, which has already created attribute suppression. With a defense value of more than 16 points, even if the rabbit uses a skill, it can only deduct a little blood from me. My 160 blood points are enough for the little rabbit to fight for a while. If you challenge the rabbit right after entering the Star Source world, without the attack skills of the combat profession, you may end up being killed. Even those gold farmers who are stronger than them still have to replenish their blood after fighting for a while before they can continue fighting intermittently. Now Shen Xingyan's 15 points of strength attribute plus the 1 point of strength added by the dragon elephant fist can reach 16 points of attack power. The rabbit has only 10 points of defense value, and he can cause 6 points of damage to the rabbit every time. With the same 16 points of agility, his attack frequency reaches 3 punches every 2 seconds, which means it only takes less than 9 seconds to kill a rabbit. It won't allow the opponent to activate the second skill at all. Shen Xingyan thought about it in his mind and felt that it was still very stable, so he did not hesitate anymore and directly used a set of dragon elephant fist to attack the irritable rabbit. After one punch, the number -6 appeared above the rabbit as expected. When the rabbit reacted and attacked Shen Xingyan, it did not cause any damage. Fortunately, rabbits don't have any emotions, otherwise they would probably have a confused look on their faces right now. Chapter 62. After the attack missed, the irritable giant rabbit's originally light blue eyes instantly turned scarlet. As a result, its body size began to expand rapidly. Its height, which had originally reached Shen Xingyan's waist, was forcibly raised up. The whole rabbit looked full of anger and irritability. When Shen Xingyan saw the performance of the giant rabbit, he finally understood why the word violent was prefixed to its name. The irritable giant rabbit sped up instantly and rushed towards the enemy Shen Xingyan violently. Its 2 sharp big teeth exuded a deep chill and bit straight up. Shen Xingyan saw the giant rabbit in this posture, but he was completely unmoved as he had already made up his mind. He just endured the giant rabbit's full force bite without dodging or evading, to confirm his guess. But at the same time, his hands were not idle. While the giant rabbit was approaching, he smashed the giant rabbit with his fist powered by the dragon elephant fist, and the giant rabbit's health bar began to drop wildly. On the other hand, when Shen Xingyan was hit by the giant rabbit with all its strength, a -1 health loss prompt just flashed above his head, and there was no other reaction. Fortunately, my farmer's 3-piece suit has no durability limit, otherwise, after the little rabbit's bite, the durability would have started to loosen. Shen Xingyan gently patted the place bitten by the giant rabbit, thinking with a relaxed expression. Shen Xingyan has lived with his sister for so many years that he has developed a frugal consciousness of saving where possible and spending where possible. Now he feels that this 3-piece farmer's set is quite good except for the lack of attribute bonus. The attack of the giant rabbit just now also verified Shen Xingyan's guess. After that, he no longer held back and attacked with all his strength. After a few seconds of unilateral suppression, the irritable giant rabbit became less irritable. After leaving behind a piece of meat and 2 copper coins, it gently turned into a wisp of green smoke and disappeared peacefully on the spot. The gold farmers around were originally staring at Shen Xingyan with an expression of anticipating a good show, but after seeing such an incongruous and violent scene, their expressions suddenly changed, and their eyes wide open directly expressed their shock. Especially some people who had just commented on Shen Xingyan, they suddenly felt choked, as if they were pretending to be naive but got slapped in the face, and the temperature on their faces began to rise sharply. Is he that strong? He just attacked me directly like that, that's too violent. I feel like I've been fooled by this kid. He looks so young, but I didn't expect him to be a veteran professional. I'm really short-sighted. Just now I thought Shen Xingyan was a novice who was out for a walk, and subconsciously I had to defend my previous misjudgment. The meaning was very clear. It was not that we were too incompetent, but that the communist army was too cunning. Even when the giant rabbit attacked with all its strength, only 1 point was deducted, which means that the opponent's defense has reached 16 points. Looking at the peasant equipment that the other party is wearing, which has no defense bonus, we can infer that the physical attribute of this old farmer has at least reached the standard of level 7. Or maybe he's a physical farmer. He put all his attribute points into physical fitness. That doesn't make sense. Judging from his speed and damage, his opponent's is not low. Could he have reached level 7? The people around started to talk in low voices, completely different from the carefree attitude they had before. After a simple calculation, the people present also felt that they had figured out Shen Xingyan's true level. Although there were still some uncertainties, it was certain that the old farmer's attributes were much higher than theirs. Even those combat professionals know how difficult it is to upgrade the farmer profession. To reach the current level of sparks spreading across the land would definitely take more than a dozen days to complete. In their opinion, this spark spreading across the land must be a farmer who has been awakened for a long time and deliberately came to their low-level area to show off. They would never have thought that Shen Xingyan was a farmer with fully awakened attributes, let alone that he had already completed the improvement of 4 attribute points in reality and reached the entry level of the Dragon Elephant Fist, so it was normal for them to be unsure about Shen Xingyan's level. Those who can mine gold in this low-level monster area are generally only level 3 or 4, and will never exceed level 5. Because as the level of gold farmers increases, the area where they mine gold also increases accordingly, and it basically hovers around the level where they can fight monsters independently. And Shen Xingyan, who was considered the old farmer, although he was only a farmer and had no professional skills that could attack, but under the condition of attribute suppression, he was not comparable to this group of people. As soon as this idea came out, the crowd that was originally watching lost all their indifference to the fun and immediately scattered like birds and beasts, critical of Shen Xingyan's unethical behavior in their hearts. The old farmer Shen Xingyan did not expect that people around him would have so many associations, but even if they knew, they would not pay attention. As the giant rabbit disappeared, the reminder of the star source world sounded in Shen Xingyan's ears. Congratulations, you have hunted down a violent giant rabbit and gained 0.1 professional experience points. Life professions gain an additional 0.1 experience points. Shen Xingyan shook his head slightly when he looked at the prompt, and sighed in his heart, the level suppression is still too strong. Using a level 5 professional level to fight a level 1 wild monster, the obvious level gap has greatly reduced the experience points I have gained. Originally, killing a giant rabbit could gain 0.5 experience points, but it was directly reduced to 0.1 points, which is equivalent to compressing 20% a euro of the experience points for every level difference. If you are level 6 and fight a giant rabbit, you probably won't get any experience points at all. Fortunately, there is a bonus from the life profession in the prompt, so I got a total of 0.2 experience points. Considering the efficiency of killing monsters, it is not bad. Shen Xingyan thought this in his mind as he picked up his spoils. At the same time, he checked the quality of the rabbit meat and found that it was of ordinary quality, so he threw it directly into his backpack. Being able to obtain loot the first time he killed a monster was already a pleasant surprise for Shen Xingyan, and he didn't ask for too much. It seems that the Xing Yuan world treats me well. Next, I will see if I can get high-quality rabbit meat. Shen Xingyan thought with some emotion in his heart. Then he began to learn from the gold farmers and look for the giant rabbit. But unlike other gold farmers who only dared to attract 1 giant rabbit at a time, Shen Xingyan attracted 5 rabbits at a time to fight together. Anyway, the ordinary attacks of the giant rabbit could not break his defense, and attracting more at a time would save him the time to look for them. Chapter 63. The people who were farming gold around didn't want to pay much attention to Shen Xingyan. After all, they had already subjectively determined that the old farmer was a person who liked to show off. Putting themselves in his shoes, they felt that too much attention would only encourage his arrogance. But they would subconsciously look in his direction, and accidentally notice that Shen Xingyan had attracted 5 giant rabbits at once. The grand scene made their pupils shrink after seeing it, and they had no way of pretending not to see it. Isn't this bullying? We were so far away from each other, but he still pretended to be me. There's no such thing. If I had known, I would have added all of it to my physical fitness. A warrior who was fighting for gold looked at Shen Xingyan with some anger, but at the same time he felt a little envious, and had a feeling that if the enemy could go there, he could go there too. Moreover, the other party was a farmer, and doing such a crazy thing really broadened their horizons. Add all your free attribute points to your physical fitness. The giant rabbit can't take away your health. Then can you beat the giant rabbit? Do you have the money to buy a high-attack weapon? Besides, at such a high level, you can't get experience from killing rabbits, and the critical rate is pitifully low. Apart from showing off here, there is no real advantage. His fellow gold miner poured a bucket of cold water on him without hesitation, but his tone became increasingly sour as he spoke. The warrior's mood that had just risen also calmed down. The fact was just as the other party had said, their industry was like this, killing monsters was the norm, and they needed to maintain a career model that had both output and defense in order to move forward step by step. If you want to be as willful as the old farmer, then the early days of your career will become increasingly difficult, and the improvement of your strength will be so slow that it will be disgusting. Of course, as capital accumulates, they will move away from this model in the future, but they will need enough time to settle. Those combat professionals like Chu Wei who have a sufficiently wealthy background win directly at the starting line. They have much better choices than these gold farmers. After facing the reality, they sighed when they saw Shen Xingyan beating up 5 giant rabbits alone. The appearance of Shen Xingyan made them comfort themselves with the pride of their combat profession and feel that they were the protagonists of the era. But now they saw that a farmer could actually do such a crazy thing. Although the reality did not allow it, they still felt that their current life was a bit conservative. However, Shen Xingyan was unaware of the difficulties these junior combat professionals were facing. At this moment, he only felt that he was becoming more and more adept at using the dragon elephant fist during the fight with the giant rabbits. Sometimes, he could successfully dodge the full strength attacks of the giant rabbit by relying on his speed that surpassed theirs and the simple body movements that came with the dragon elephant fist. You should know that the attack skills of the giant rabbit are 100% accurate at the primary stage, and the probability of being avoided by a new professional is extremely low, but Shen Xingyan can do it at this stage, which is not easy. This discovery immediately made Shen Xingyan somewhat enjoyable. He wandered among several giant rabbits and felt relaxed. As the battle progressed, the use of dragon elephant fist gradually became more agile. Compared with simply practicing boxing, the effect of boxing in actual combat was becoming more and more in line with his level. After this wave of battles, Shen Xingyan's health, which was originally very low, only dropped 2 points with the cooperation of the giant rabbits, and he successfully killed 5 giant rabbits. Although the battle process was very enjoyable, the result was different from what was expected. The 5 giant rabbits turned into smoke and disappeared, leaving Shen Xingyan with only 11 copper coins. Congratulations, you have hunted down 5 violent giant rabbits and gained 0.5 points of professional experience. Life professions gain an additional 0.5 points of experience. After hearing Xing Yuan's prompt tone, Shen Xingyan also let out a long sigh of relief. In less than 5 minutes, you can get 1 experience point, which is much better than the experience points of ordinary life professions. Looking at the 11 copper coins lying quietly on the ground, Shen Xingyan sighed, but the only flaw is that my novice halo seems to have disappeared, and the 5 rabbits only dropped so few copper coins. It seems that under the suppression of the high-level difference, the explosion rate in the star source world, which was not high to begin with, has become even more pitiful. This is also an important reason why high-level professionals disdain to kill low-level monsters. Even gold farmers will not hunt across too large a level. This is really not a cost-effective thing. Shen Xingyan picked up the copper coin with an idea. After all, no matter how small a fly's leg is, it is still flesh. It is not shameful to pick up money. Then he continued to search. At this time, he was like a fighter. After seeing the giant rabbit, he became excited and the warlike emotion in his bones was released. If he wasn't wearing a simple farmer's suit, seeing his current state, others really couldn't tell that he was a professional living person. Shen Xingyan searched for 2 or 3 minutes before he finally gathered several monsters together, and then he started punching and violently killing the monsters. After being shocked by Shen Xingyan's actions, the people around him began to feel numb when they saw the same scene happen again. My mentality began to become indifferent. While I looked disdainful on the surface, I was only thinking that when their levels were raised to this level, I could try this approach and show off in front of other people. Shen Xingyan maintained this efficient mode of gathering and killing monsters for nearly an hour, during which time he hunted more than 50 giant rabbits and obtained 3 pieces of rabbit meat, but they were all of ordinary quality, and more than 100 copper coins. The use of dragon elephant fist has also become much more natural, and its application in actual combat has become more flexible. However, without the blessing of super high comprehension, the progress of improving martial arts has not changed much. But overall, it is much stronger than the average gold farmer, so it can be said that it is not a waste of time. Unfortunately, he wanted to try his luck and see if he could get a piece of high-quality rabbit meat, but he did not achieve his wish. Seeing that his physical strength was being seriously depleted and the time for him to go to the training hall was approaching, Shen Xingyan prepared to go back to the village and log off, returning to the real world. However, at this moment, he found that a rabbit that was much smaller than the giant rabbit suddenly appeared beside him. Chapter 64. Shen Xingyan was distracted for a moment as he looked at the unique rabbit that had appeared next to him. The little rabbit looks quite cute. It is small and its white fur is more attractive than the black and grey fur of the giant rabbit. However, something must be wrong when things are abnormal. Shen Xingyan subconsciously began to move away from the other party, but suddenly he felt that he had entered a state of absent-mindedness and stood there in a daze. In this state, Shen Xingyan would not even react to check the attribute information of the little white rabbit in front of him. At this time, the little white rabbit that had just refreshed attacked Shen Xingyan directly, and its sharp front teeth bit Shen Xingyan's arm fiercely. Then, 2 blood loss prompts -6 and -6 floated above Shen Xingyan's head. Shen Xingyan, who was in a trance at this time, was suddenly startled and came out of that state. After coming to his senses, Shen Xingyan quickly stepped back, putting some distance between himself and the little rabbit that looked cute but was actually ferocious. However, even if Shen Xingyan retreated with all his strength, he could only create a small distance between himself and the little white rabbit. If he relaxed even a little, he would be immediately attacked by the brutal little white rabbit. Shen Xingyan took advantage of this gap to quickly check the properties of the little white rabbit. Name: Elite Giant Rabbit Level, Level 3 Skill, Bite. A single attack on the target increases physical attack power by 10 points, with a 15% chance of triggering bleeding effect. The skill cooldown is 4 seconds. Charm, cast on a target with lower mental strength than your own. If cast successfully, the target will fall into a state of unconsciousness for 1 second. The skill cooldown is 10 minutes. Strength, 22 points agility, 14 points constitution, 14 points spirit, 14 points HP, 140/140 points physical attack, 22 points spell attack, 14 points defense, 14 points speed, 14 points talent skill, fast movement, increases movement speed by 20%, lasts for 10 seconds, cooldown time is 1 minute. After seeing the other party's attributes, Shen Xingyan couldn't help but frowned, and he also found the reason for his sudden distraction just now. Charm skill? The elite monsters in the Xingyan world actually have one more skill than ordinary monsters. I haven't noticed this before. Shen Xingyan was also a little surprised by this discovery. And this cute-looking rabbit turned out to be a level 3 elite rabbit. Its attributes were greatly improved compared to an ordinary giant rabbit. Faced with such attributes, Shen Xingyan couldn't help but feel a little tricky. With my current attack power, I can only deal 2 points of damage. With 140 health points according to my current attack speed and passive situation, it will take nearly a minute to complete the hunt. Even without using any skills, the opponent can cause 6 points of damage to me. With an attack speed of 14 and my current health, the little rabbit can kill me in just over 10 seconds, and that's without using any skills. After launching a skill attack, it can cause 16 points of attack power. Who can stand this? For the time being, I can only take advantage of the opponent's slight speed advantage to maneuver around him while he hasn't activated his talent skill yet. Shen Xingyan thought so, and his hands were not idle, he pushed and blasted forward with the dragon elephant fist. Shen Xingyan backed away while analyzing the current situation. The professionals who were originally a little closer to Shen Xingyan scattered far away the moment they saw the little white rabbit, fearing that innocent people would be implicated. You have to know that once you enter a combat state, there is generally no way to leave the battlefield. This can only be achieved with the use of special items and skills, which they obviously do not have. If they were really targeted, they would definitely not be able to defeat them given their levels and attributes, and the losses would be huge. The group of people who had previously thought that the old farmer was pretending to be naive, immediately began to gloat over this situation after seeing this situation. Ah, it really is true that justice will prevail. I let you act pretentiously, and look at what's going on now. You've won a jackpot, right? You can even encounter elite monsters that are random and satisfying to your liking. This is really satisfying. Ha ha ha. Yes, this little rabbit showed up just in time. Now the old farmer is going to be crippled. They began to gloat over other people's misfortune and started to whisper again. They also started to laugh, but they did not dare to show it too obviously. After all, they liked to watch the fun and did not want to become the fun themselves. One of them looked at Shen Xingyan's sudden change in combat posture, touched it and analyzed with some sighs, although I can't see his attributes, but seeing that the old farmer actually started to fight hard, it's almost certain that he's on drugs. This time I'm really going to lose money. Who can afford such an expensive potion? The fact was just as this person guessed. After Shen Xingyan learned that he would be killed in seconds with his current attributes, he had already thought of a countermeasure in his mind. He just had a thought and quickly opened the Xingyan Mall and quickly searched for the row of blood-restoring potions. His mind paused for a moment on the low-level blood recovery potion, then he skipped over it and locked onto the intermediate-level blood recovery potion. Without hesitation, he spent 1 silver coin to buy a bottle of intermediate blood recovery potion, and then poured the potion directly into his mouth without saying a word. Looking at the blood volume recovering bit by bit, Shen Xingyan stopped retreating. Now that he was out of danger, he began to feel a little distressed. The intermediate blood recovery potion he just bought can restore 500 health points for him within 1 minute, which means an average of more than 8 points of health per second. With such a high amount of HP recovery, Shen Xingyan can completely resist the attacks from the elite little white rabbit. He doesn't even need to guard against the opponent's skill attacks. He only needs to follow his attack frequency and hunt down the little white rabbit within 1 minute. Shen Xingyan, who was now free of any risk, could not help but sigh. What the base commander said before turned out to be true. Money can really change your fate. At least today, money saved his life. Alas. There are risks in making money. Forget it, just think of it as spending money to buy experience. The value of this bottle of potion just now paid back all of Shen Xingyan's earnings in this hour, and not only that, he also spent several hundred copper coins. This made him feel that he had to be stronger to go out into the wild. With the help of the potion, Shen Xingyan no longer retreated, but instead took the initiative to rush forward. With the blessing of 16 points of attack speed, the dragon elephant fist punched at the little white rabbit's face. The feeling of the blow also dissipated a lot of his previous mood. He spent so much money to buy this 1 minute experience time, he must experience it carefully. Chapter 65. Brother Farmer is as violent as ever. He is so fierce even when dealing with elite monsters. He is so fierce that he is inhumane. I knew it, he must be on drugs. There's a health recovery indicator on his head. And he's taking a mid-level recovery potion. He's really rich and inhumane. This old farmer is really hard-working. The gold farmers around noticed that Shen Xingyan began to show signs of health recovery, and they all sighed, thinking, it seems that I have to be more careful when I act cool in the future, so as not to accidentally make things worse and become a joke like the old farmer. Although they felt that the old farmer seemed to have failed in this wave, seeing that he was so fierce from beginning to end as a farmer, they also refreshed their understanding of this profession. The sense of superiority in my heart as a combat professional also dissipated a little. And the old farmer Shen Xingyan in their eyes was now experiencing the feeling of being punched in the flesh. The elite little white rabbit was also very cooperative, always staying within the attack range of Shen Xingyan, attacking tirelessly, which also made it easier for Shen Xingyan to perform his boxing skills, which gave him a very good experience. In the situation of two-way running between Xiao Beidou and Shen Xingyan, in less than a minute, the last drop of Xiao Beidou's blood disappeared from the blood bar, and at the same time, Xing Yuan's prompt sound began to sound in his ears. Congratulations, you have hunted down an elite giant rabbit and gained 1.2 professional experience points. Life professions gain an additional 1.2 experience points. Looking at the increased experience, Shen Xingyan nodded slightly. He was not surprised that a level 3 elite monster could have this much experience. Although fighting against a level 3 rabbit at my own level reduced my experience by 40%, taking into account my own life profession bonus, it is still more than the normal hunting experience of the elite giant rabbit, which is something that combat professionals cannot compare to. Shen Xingyan thought about this while waiting for the spoils to appear, to see if there was anything valuable that could be dropped. After all, it was good to get a little more money back. Just as the rabbit was about to disappear, suddenly a ray of light flashed from its body. After the rabbit disappeared, the thing wrapped in the light also fell to the ground. Hey! Shen Xingyan couldn't help but raise his eyebrows at the sudden strange sight. Realizing that the goods had been shipped, he quickly looked towards his spoils. At this time, a piece of shiny rabbit meat, a piece of equipment shrouded in faint light, and more than 30 copper coins were lying quietly on the ground, waiting for Shen Xingyan to collect them. Shen Xingyan picked up the rabbit meat first and examined it. Item, rabbit meat, high quality, quantity, 2 pieces value, 600 copper coins attributes, one of the raw materials for cooking food, containing more nutrients. Shen Xingyan looked at the suffix of the name of rabbit meat and the displayed properties, a satisfied look appeared on his face, and he thought happily in his heart, I was lucky this time, and the purpose of coming out was achieved. Although there were some twists and turns, the result is always good. And judging from this reward alone, the money I spent on purchasing the medicine just now has been fully recovered. At least I didn't lose money on this trip. After Shen Xingyan put away the rabbit meat, he immediately looked towards the trophy shrouded in a faint light. He was also familiar with this phenomenon that only occurs when equipment is produced. He had thought about this phenomenon many times before awakening. Shen Xingyan raised his hands and rubbed them together, thinking silently in his heart, this is the first time I get equipment, I hope I can get something good. Then he picked it up and checked the equipment properties. Item, broken bracelet required level 3 durability, 20/20ths value, 5 silver attributes, all basic attacks plus 3. It's actually rare jewelry. This is a bit unexpected. Jewelry equipment is very rare, and its value is not comparable to ordinary equipment. If I buy it from Xing Yuan Mall, I'm afraid it will cost 10 silver coins. Seeing that the equipment he opened turned out to be a bracelet, Shen Xingyan was so happy that the corners of his mouth curved up. Shen Xingyan thought it was normal to find high-quality rabbit meat from elite rabbits, but he felt a little surprised after seeing this jewelry. No wonder combat professionals are so keen on killing monsters. Not only can they increase their experience and make money, but they also have the sense of anticipation that is like opening a blind box. It gives people a feeling that a surprise is just around the corner. It is really addictive. Shen Xingyan also sighed in his heart, and equipped the bracelet without hesitation. The first piece of equipment appeared in the jewelry area of €1 the equipment bar, which was originally empty. At the same time, the 2 types of attack power of 15 points in his attribute panel were also increased to 18 points. After picking up the remaining copper coins, Shen Xingyan did not stay here any longer and walked happily towards the village in the distance, leaving the gold maker standing there with a look of astonishment watching his departure. Is this possible? This old farmer is so lucky that he actually got some equipment. They were gloating before, but after seeing the brilliance from afar, they were dumbfounded. After all, the lowest level equipment was worth nearly a silver coin. The old farmer has made his money back directly. This thought came to their minds at the same time. They originally thought that Shen Xingyan would lose money this time, but they did not expect that high risks are often accompanied by high returns. After returning to the village, Shen Xingyan's slightly tense body began to relax. He did not wander around the village for long, but directly connected to the planting space and returned to his own space. It was not until he returned to his own territory and saw Wang Ke and the others working, which was so quiet and peaceful, that Shen Xingyan finally felt relieved. Although the battle in the wild just now was generally safe, in comparison, he still prefers the current peaceful environment and atmosphere. Different from a battle that was like a game, the feeling of rewarding one's efforts made him feel at ease. If it weren't for the dangerous environment in the real world, it would be a good life to just farm a piece of land. Thinking of this, Shen Xingyan couldn't help but think, it seems that I am really cut out for farming. Could it be that when I awakened before, the light column had already sensed my true nature? This thought made him laugh and shake his head. After extracting a piece of ordinary rabbit meat into the real world, Shen Xingyan took a quick look at the condition of the farmland. Seeing that there was no problem, he patted Wang Ke's little head and returned to the real world. Chapter 66. After Shen Xingyan returned to reality, he extracted the rabbit meat from the Xing Yuan card, then went to the kitchen and cut it into several portions and put them away. Then he cooked some rabbit meat and combined it with some home-cooked dishes to make up his lunch. Although Shen Xingyan himself does not have very high cooking skills, due to the nature of rabbit meat, it only takes simple cooking methods to make it delicious with a meaty aroma, which makes Shen Xingyan's appetite increase. After savoring it carefully, Shen Xingyan kept nodding his head to express his praise. At the same time, he felt a refreshing feeling in his body, as if he had become much lighter, and a feeling of fullness gradually swept over his body. This feeling of fullness was different from the usual one. Before, after each meal, Shen Xingyan only felt that his stomach was briefly satisfied, but this time he felt that his whole body began to reveal a sense of satisfaction. Shen Xingyan couldn't help but sigh about this physical condition, although my body has been awakened and has passed the basic stage of rapid growth. However, long-term exercise still keeps the body in a state of nutritional deficiency, which causes me to get hungry so quickly after normal exercise or after returning from the star source world, simply because basic food cannot provide me with enough nutrition. Now with this meat, not only can my body functions be improved, but the natural recovery rate of my physical strength will also increase, and the speed of improving my attributes in the future will also become faster accordingly. Shen Xingyan analyzed it in his mind, and finally had some beautiful fantasies. After cleaning up the battlefield after dinner, Shen Xingyan saw that it was getting late, so he quickly changed his clothes and trotted to the training hall to start today's strength and agility training. For today's training, Shen Xingyan, who had plenty of energy, did not hesitate to increase the difficulty to the maximum. Both strength and agility training exceeded his historical intensity. His attitude is full of the attitude of train until death as long as I don't die. He also skipped the rest time that should have been adjusted according to normal exercise, and his exercise rhythm was much tighter than before. After all, no matter how high a person's attributes are, their training is carried out according to a method of relaxation and tension. However, Shen Xingyan seemed to have no idea how to rest, giving people the feeling that he was venting madly. This also made people around him really think that he was stimulated by something and was venting his emotions. After all, there are indeed quite a few such people. In this era where everything is judged by strength, it is normal to be provoked. But Shen Xingyan, who was fully relaxed, didn't care about so many things. The 1-hour trip to the wild today made him realize the passive situation caused by his own weakness. And that was only in the Shen Yuan world. If something unexpected happened, at most they would not be able to go to the Shen Yuan world for a few days. For people like Shen Xingyan who had little skeletons to control the farmland, apart from making the crops wait a few more days to mature, the impact was not that big. But what if this happened in the real world? An accident would become a permanent accident, and he didn't want to experience such a thing. As soon as Shen Xingyan thought of the wilderness of the Shen Yuan world, he would connect it to their current outside world. If he wanted to step out of this boundary in the future, he would need even more powerful strength. Just like how he crushed the level 1 giant rabbit at the beginning, he used his overwhelming strength to leave the opponent helpless. As long as I have enough strength, any accident will not be an accident. Shen Xingyan encouraged himself in his heart and began to train frantically. This training state continued until his training time was over. When Shen Xingyan came out of that state, he still looked a little unsatisfied. Normally at this time his physical strength would have been severely depleted, but today he had the nutritious rabbit meat as a support, and his physical strength was slowly increasing. Overall, his physical strength consumption was not that great. Although he was a little reluctant, he stopped training. After all, he still needed to maintain a normal professional schedule in the outside world. After checking his own attributes, Shen Xingyan was not disappointed to find that his strength and agility had not increased. After all, his 2 attributes had just improved a little yesterday. Even if he trained like crazy today, taking into account the improvement of his physical qualities during the Dragon Elephant Fist practice in the morning, it would still take time to improve his attributes. Shen Xingyan came to the front desk to return the timer. The front desk staff took it and looked at him with a rare appreciation. She was very optimistic about the energy Shen Xingyan had put into his training today. She would not think about what reasons prompted such behavior. As long as people could transfer their motivation to training, she would be optimistic about them. After all, reality is the foundation of life. Seeing that the other party was so kind, Shen Xingyan smiled and nodded to the other party, then left the training hall and went to the school gate nearby to wait for his sister to finish school. Not long after, the brother and sister returned home. Shen Xingyan went straight into the kitchen and cooked some rabbit meat, mixed it with some daily food, and served it on the dining table. Wow, there's meat today. You must have spent a lot of money, brother. Shen Xingyan, who had just come out of her room to eat, exclaimed in delight after seeing the rabbit meat her brother had made. But then she frowned slightly and continued, "You're just wasting money. This amount of meat must cost hundreds of copper coins. Our family just got some money now, and you're wasting it like this." As Shen Xingyan spoke, she couldn't help but pout, expressing her dissatisfaction. Shen Xingyan smiled and said, "We make money to spend. Eat more meat to replenish your body. Don't be stingy with money. We have the conditions now. It's okay to eat meat occasionally." Shen Xingyan just spoke the truth and didn't elaborate on any other unnecessary words. Shen Xingyan felt a little helpless when she saw her brother say this, but she also knew in her heart that her brother's words were correct in this era. Being able to use the money to improve her own strength would be the best destination for the money. After thinking this through, Shen Xingyan started to eat with big mouthfuls of meat. Before, she could only eat such a meal of meat on her birthday or special anniversaries. She cherished the sumptuous meal in front of her very much. It smells so good. Shen Xingyan finally did not escape the law of true smell, and at the same time, her face blossomed with a bright smile that she should have at her age. Chapter 67. When you return to your room, Don't exercise for too long. After all, your body is now in the process of building its foundation. It is important to combine work and rest. Let these nutrients stay in your body for a while. It will be good for your body. After the brother and sister finished their meal, Shen Xingyan gave his sister some advice based on his experience. In his opinion, now with the blessing of these nutrients, his sister no longer needs to suffer as much as he did before, staying up late every day to exercise and overdeveloping her physical potential. As long as he trains step by step, his abilities may become stronger and stronger in the foreseeable future. My sister is only 13 years old now, and it will take another 5 years for her to awaken. During these 5 years, with 2 powerful skills, he couldn't imagine how powerful he would be by then, and what he could provide to his sister would definitely get better and better. By then, the full attribute awakening that my sister wants will be a very easy thing, and there is no need to train so hard now. In the face of her brother's concern, Shen Xingyan did not refute, but just nodded slightly in response. As for what her final arrangements would be, from her cunning eyes, it could be seen that only she knew. After returning to the room, Shen Xingyan simply digested the food in his body. After making his body feel more comfortable, he directly called out the Star Source card, connected the Star Source card and went to the Star Source world. After so many trips back and forth between the Star Origin world and the real world, Shen Xingyan has become extremely proficient in this. The experience of his consciousness leaving his body and traveling through a black hole has become something he is accustomed to, as if it were a daily occurrence. He has even worked out several different ways of landing, which adds some fun to this part. Shen Xingyan came into the planting space in a very normal posture this time, and the little skeletons who were waiting for the Star Source maintenance prompt at the edge of the field also discovered him and began to gather around him immediately. Shen Xingyan nodded slightly and without hesitation, he summoned his 14th skeleton. The little skeleton came out under their gaze, shook its head as if curious, and then looked at its master, instinctively waiting for the battle command. Wang Ke seemed to have gotten used to this kind of daily routine. Often, before Shen Xingyan gave any instructions, it would already walk to the new little skeleton and start its daily work. This time was no exception. Before Shen Xingyan could say anything, Wang Ke directly pulled the new little skeleton to start training. Shen Xingyan was not surprised by the special behavior of his own Wang Ke. After all, he was Wang Ke, his first little skeleton and the one who had been with him the longest. He felt very happy that Wang Ke did things that he did not understand but were extremely convenient for his daily work. Not long after that, Shen Xingyan's professional skills also completed cooling down. After the reduction of professional skill cooldown time in the past few days, the effect of -4% cooldown of professional skills has also become slightly apparent, as can be seen from the reduction in Shen Xingyan's exercise time after dinner. At this time, the release time of his 2 powerful skills also came to a similar time period. It would be great if my innate skills could also reduce the cooldown time like my professional skills. I could summon skeletons much faster in the future. Who knows, even if the land increases in the future, with a considerable number of skeletons as a foundation, I would only need to use 2 skills here and be done with it. Shen Xingyan couldn't help but think in his heart as he looked at his professional skills. While thinking, Shen Xingyan did not waste any time. After equipping his novice walking stick, he began to silently recite the release of professional skills in his mind. As all the energy in his body began to surge, the feeling of energy flowing through his body came over him again. Although due to ideological reasons, the feeling was not as strong as when he used perception skills in reality, it made him more familiar with the use of energy. As 25 points of energy poured out and acted on 5 acres of farmland, the wheat and potatoes also began to accelerate. At this time, the 14 little skeletons surrounding Shen Xingyan also walked very consciously to their respective areas under Wang Ke's arrangement. After all, with their limited intelligence, they can see that as long as the owner takes out the small stick, there will be a busy period. Instead of waiting for the enemy to arrive, they might as well take the initiative to attack. After Shen Xingyan released his professional skills, he nodded slightly when he saw the crazy growth of wheat and potatoes. Although he had seen such scenes more than once, he still thought such scenes were extremely beautiful. Then he looked at the little skeletons who had started to take their positions before Xingyuan's prompt appeared, and he couldn't help laughing. Am I being a little cruel? Letting such a small skeleton experience the hardships of life too early? Even starting to actively wait for work to do. This is really wrong. Shen Xingyan shook his head and began to criticize himself in a fake manner. But if he were given another chance, he would still choose to do it and attribute it to something mysterious like fate. When Shen Xingyan sighed, Xingyuan's maintenance prompt seemed to react and once again attacked Shen Xingyan and his little skeletons. Then the final result is predictable. Including Shen Xingyan, they now have a total of 15 laborers. 3 laborers can maintain 1 acre of land with ease. Even under the swift attack prompted by Xingyuan, they did not seem panicked at all. After more than 2 hours of work, Shen Xingyan saw that the maintenance prompts had weakened a lot, so he withdrew from the farm work team and returned to reality to prepare for further training. At this time, Shen Xingyan, who had returned to the real world after more than 2 hours of work, did not look tired at all. Instead, he was full of energy. If the food in the real world replenished his physical energy, then the planting space in the Star Wish world, the scene that always contained hope, gave him a spiritual supplement. It was a kind of confidence that gave him strength, even though he was now like an ant in the real world, giving people the feeling that no matter how much he trained, the final result would be to be trampled under the feet of those strong people. But as long as he has this confidence, he will have the motivation and hope to move forward step by step, and this hope will become greater and greater as he moves forward. With this motivation, Shen Xingyan's physical exercises became more vigorous and powerful. Chapter 68. The bodybuilding exercises taught by Shen Xingyan School, which are aimed at improving a single attribute, have been verified by them over the years to be the most effective for ordinary people. Of course there must be better ones, but they are beyond the reach of Shen Xingyan, an ordinary person, at this stage. The time during the training passed very quickly. Shen Xingyan was completely immersed in the bodybuilding movements, so much so that he did not feel the time passing quickly during this period. When he was exercising before, every time he reached a certain level, his body's energy would remind him that it was insufficient, letting him know that it was time to exercise. But now with the nutritional supplement of rabbit meat, this biological clock-like reminder has become ineffective and Shen Xingyan has not been able to break away from his exercise state. This also made Shen Xingyan's training time seem to gradually deviate from his original plan. Then at this moment, Shen Xingyan, who was immersed in exercise, suddenly felt a strange change in his body, which made him slowly stop his movements as he became more and more sensitive to the control of his body. After carefully feeling this slightly familiar feeling, Shen Xingyan's originally serious expression suddenly became happy. He called out his star source card without hesitation and checked it. Constitution, 13 points HP, 130/130 physical strength, 7/13 points defense, 13 points. Looking at the numbers displayed in the property panel, his thoughts were confirmed. In the actual attribute panel, the physical attribute that was originally 12 points has now become 13 points, and the blood volume, defense, and physical strength limits have also been improved accordingly. After confirming the result, Shen Xingyan could no longer hide his joy. After all, he got 10 gold coins for free again, and anyone would have this emotion. However, the speed at which his physical attributes improved was somewhat beyond his expectations. According to his normal estimation, if he wanted to increase his physical attributes again, it would take at least 7 or 8 days. The attribute improvement in reality was not as sudden as in the Star Wish world, but needed to be gradual. And now, it has only been 4 days since the last time the physical attributes were improved. Logically, the attributes should improve more slowly as time goes by, and should not be improved so quickly. Could it be the help given when I was learning the Dragon Elephant Fist? After the surprise, Shen Xingyan couldn't help but analyze the reasons. After careful consideration, he couldn't help but think of this recent exception. As a martial art that has both offensive and defensive capabilities, practicing the Dragon Elephant Fist will have a certain effect on improving all aspects of the body. Moreover, with the help of perception skills, he also improved it to the entry level of 23%. This process would not have much effect on the body in Xingyuan's obviously digital world. But now he is in the real world. Although his body has become digital after awakening, there are still fundamental differences. The point of view that attributes can be improved through self-training is something that does not exist in the Star Source world. From this, it can be inferred that yesterday's Dragon Elephant Fist undoubtedly had a significant promoting effect on his body. Coupled with his crazy exercise today, as well as elements such as rabbit meat and physical potions, this result really makes Shen Xingyan feel quite reasonable. After some analysis, Shen Xingyan felt that he understood the reason. His eyes couldn't help but fall on the Dragon Elephant Fist in the attribute panel. He was looking forward to practicing the Dragon Elephant Fist after the skill was cooled down tomorrow. After digesting this good news, Shen Xingyan noticed the time. It was already late at night. Seeing this, he stopped training, simply tidied himself up, lay down on the bed, and re-entered the Star Source world. At the old place beside the field, I gradually fell asleep while looking at the peaceful pastoral scene before me. Ever since Shen Xingyan rested in the Xingyuan world, he found that he had fallen in love with sleeping here. Not only because this place allows him to fall asleep quickly, but also he finds that since he came in as unconscious being, his spirit can be better restored by sleeping here. Every time he wakes up, he feels refreshed, a feeling that is rarely experienced in the real world. At this early stage of the profession, the time spent in the Star Wish world is limited after all. Shen Xingyan's behavior is very rare among professionals before level 20. Other professionals wouldn't even think about it. After all, wouldn't it be nice to use this time to fight monsters, level up, and complete quests? Even though they may have heard such things from their family elders, they would only think it was a joke. At least at the current stage, they would not waste their precious Star Source time on sleeping for such a slight improvement in mental recovery. When Wang Ke and the other little skeletons saw that their master started to behave in that strange manner again, they were not surprised. As they worked diligently, they would not show any complaints. Including Wang Ke, when they saw their owner's presence, the enthusiasm of all the little skeletons seemed to be mobilized, and their efficiency was slightly improved compared to usual. In such a scene, time had come to the next morning, and Shen Xingyan was awakened from his sleep by the reminder he had set. Feeling refreshed all over, he sat up and stretched lazily. Looking at the little skeletons working in the fields and the growing crops, he felt somewhat satisfied. He got up and walked to the farmland, touched the skulls of the little skeletons one by one, and said a few inspirational words. Although he didn't know if they could understand, it was a reward for their hard work. As Shen Xingyan's right-hand man, Wang Ke was given special attention by him. Arriving at the central area, Shen Xingyan carefully checked the growth of the wheat and felt that it was indeed very pleasing. Each year of wheat seemed to foreshadow a good harvest. However, Shen Xingyan was a little unsure whether he could break the record with tomorrow night's harvest. Although he believed that the wheat fields with careful cultivation should have a better harvest, he could not guarantee it before the final result came out. After all, the most difficult thing for a person to surpass is himself. After chatting with Wang Ke for a while, Shen Xingyan waved goodbye and left. After returning to the real world, he found that he was not as hungry as usual, which made him pay attention to nutritious meals again. Shen Xingyan came to the kitchen to make breakfast for his sister. At the same time, he took out the third bottle of physical activation potion from the Xing Yuan card and put it into his sister's breakfast to ensure her physical growth throughout the day. After sending his sister home, he trained a little. Seeing that the cooldown of his perception skill was about to be completed, he turned to practice the Dragon Elephant Fist. Chapter 69. Comprehension. Consume a corresponding amount of energy to increase the comprehension value by a corresponding amount, which lasts for 1 hour. The skill cooldown time is 24 hours. The current comprehension value is 8 points. Shen Xingyan was practicing the Dragon Elephant Fist while looking at the perception skill in the attribute panel, counting the countdown in his mind. When he silently counted to the end of the skill cooldown, he activated the perception skill directly with a thought. In an instant, the energy in his body began to gather towards his brain. During this gathering process, the perception skill seemed to guide the energy in a mysterious way, as if it was disintegrated and reorganized, and then slowly integrated into his brain. Although Shen Xingyan didn't quite understand the principle behind this mysterious feeling, he had a deeper understanding of the original energy. As all the energy entered his brain, Shen Xingyan once again felt the same feeling of enlightenment as before, and a mysterious feeling once again came over him. The transparent little man who had appeared in his mind yesterday also appeared again, and began to practice the Dragon Elephant Fist following Shen Xingyan's thoughts and actions. The agile movements of the transparent man make Shen Xingyan feel enjoyable when watching from a global perspective. In comparison, the movements his body made in real life seemed much stiffer. Shen Xingyan did not feel embarrassed about this, and began to adjust the problems in his movements according to the little man's practice movements. The speed of force generation and body movements are undergoing subtle changes as the practice progresses. If there were an expert in this field present at this time, he would definitely see his visible progress very clearly. It seemed as if each rehearsal was slightly better than the previous one, and this slight improvement was something they might not be able to achieve even after rehearsing for a long time. Shen Xingyan was immersed in this cheating-like drill and didn't feel anything unusual at all. He just felt that his current drill movements were becoming more and more similar to the feeling given by the villain. But to his regret, every time he felt that his movements were about to approach the transparent man seemed to have noticed it and arrogantly increased the progress of the drill, giving Shen Xingyan a feeling of being close yet untouchable. This feeling of never-ending learning is really irritating. Shen Xingyan thought silently in his heart. In this chase-like drill mode, Shen Xingyan maintained this state for more than 20 minutes. Suddenly, he felt that his body seemed to have undergone some changes, and he began to guess something in his mind. While practicing, he summoned the Star Source card and checked his physical condition. Through observation, it was found that the 4 major attributes in his attribute panel were the same as before, without any abnormalities, but as the line of sight moved downwards, it was discovered that the defense value had increased a little. Looking down, until he saw his Dragon Elephant Fist, he also knew the reason and determined that the change in defense value was caused by his Dragon Elephant Fist. Dragon Elephant Fist, a glimpse of the basics after the martial arts is activated, the corresponding physical strength is consumed, and strength +1, agility +1, defense +1 can be temporarily obtained. Current progress, 50%. Shen Xingyan was a little surprised to see that when the progress of Dragon Elephant Fist reached 50%, it actually had an additional defense +1 point effect. I originally thought that the Dragon Elephant Fist had a subtle influence on physical attributes, which was already good enough. I didn't expect that after reaching a certain progress, it would directly produce a bonus to the defense value. Shen Xingyan couldn't help but hammer his chest to express his joy. With the bonus of defense value from the Dragon Elephant Fist, he would be much more relaxed in future battles. The increase in martial arts attributes gave Shen Xingyan great motivation to practice. Without any delay, he continued to practice the Dragon Elephant Fist, and his pace in chasing the transparent man in his mind also increased a lot. However, as the practice progressed, Shen Xingyan himself did not realize that his movements, under the guidance of the transparent man, had become more and more smooth and natural, like a veteran martial artist with many years of practice. To reach his current state, ordinary people may not be able to achieve it even after several years. Even for those geniuses, it will take at least 1 or 2 months to reach this level. But it only took Shen Xingyan a little over an hour to create, which would have been enough to cause a stir in the outside world. Of course, even if Shen Xingyan knew about this situation, he would not feel much pride because the world is so big that there are many strange things. It is very possible for the children of those big families to achieve this achievement through various special means, although it may not be as easy as him. More than 30 minutes later, Shen Xingyan saw that the 1-hour comprehension time was about to end, and he was about to complete this final rehearsal, when he suddenly felt an invisible aura around him, and a strange sound came faintly. The attributes of the body seemed to have been elevated as well. At the same time, the Dragon Elephant Fist in his hand seemed to have entered another realm, and was extremely close to the feeling of being beaten by the little man in his mind. Shen Xingyan felt the changes in his boxing skills and the abnormalities in his body, and he couldn't help but have an epiphany: his Dragon Elephant Fist might have reached a new level. As he thought this in his mind, he finished the last practice of the Dragon Elephant Fist of the day. The time for comprehension also ended at the same time, and the transparent man in his mind slowly disappeared. After Shen Xingyan retracted his fist, he briefly recalled the feeling of punching just now. After consolidating it a little, he quickly looked at his own attribute panel: Dragon Elephant Fist, Master of the Art. After the martial arts is activated, the corresponding physical strength is consumed, and strength +2, agility +2, defense +2 can be temporarily obtained. There is a 10% chance that a Dragon Elephant prototype will be generated around the body, which will generate strength plus 4, agility plus 4, defense plus 4 effects. Current progress, 1%. Watching the introduction of the Dragon Elephant Fist, it was just as he had guessed. It broke through a major realm and reached the stage of mastering the art. It's so fantastic. This perception skill is so terrifying. I have only practiced the Dragon Elephant Fist for less than 2 hours, but I have already mastered it. At this moment, Shen Xingyan's eyes seemed to be narrowed into a crescent shape, and the joyful expression on his face could not be concealed no matter how hard he tried. He would never have dared to think of such a thing before. Although the improvement speed of martial arts in the early stages is much faster than that in the later stages, it is normal for him to improve faster with his super high comprehension. But he didn't expect it to be so fast, it was completely beyond his expectations. Chapter 70. Shen Xingyan was so excited when he saw this result, which he had only fantasized about before but was not what he expected, that he could hardly control himself. At the same time, while watching the introduction of the Dragon Elephant Fist martial arts, he also understood where the strange noise just now came from. It was the 10% probability of the Dragon Elephant prototype mentioned in the Dragon Elephant Fist. Looking at the attribute improvement brought by the Dragon Elephant prototype, Shen Xingyan couldn't help but feel jealous. If this phenomenon is triggered during a battle, his strength, agility, and defense attributes will all be increased by 6 points. Although it is only a temporary increase, the magnitude of the increase is huge for him now. When the combat power difference between the enemies is not much, the battlefield situation will be reversed immediately after the Dragon Elephant prototype is triggered. This improvement is really tempting. It makes me want to continue practicing Dragon Elephant Fist. Shen Xingyan said to himself with a sigh, shaking his head. However, he also knew the reality that without the assistance of the perception skill buff, it would be difficult for him to make further progress in this area with his own understanding. I still have to follow the previous plan and continue to focus on training the various attributes of my body. Shen Xingyan thought secretly. After calming down a little, Shen Xingyan began to do physical exercises. He did this until noon, when he stopped. While lying on the bed to let his body rest for a while, his consciousness connected to the Star Source card and entered the Star Source world, and began to stroll around in the planting space. Looking at the scene of the farmland, Shen Xingyan seemed to relax a little. Walking up to the little skeletons and observing them working, Shen Xingyan couldn't help but look at the acre of wheat. Thinking of what would happen soon, he couldn't help but start thinking. Under normal circumstances, after using his professional skills this afternoon, he would only have to wait for the harvest tomorrow night. However, in order to more steadily break the Xingyuan record in wheat production, he needs to use his professional skills on the wheat when it is almost ripe, just like last time. If this were to happen, the time difference he had gained from the cooldown reduction in the past few days would be wiped out, and he would suddenly be back to the skill casting time of a few days ago, which would be a pity. If it is cast according to the normal cooling time of the professional skill, it is very likely that the wheat will reach the mature and harvestable stage ahead of time. The final result was predictable. Even though he worked hard, there was no chance of breaking the record. Faced with this problem, Shen Xingyan hesitated for a moment before making a decision. Let's try to break the record. The value of the crops we grow at this stage is far less valuable than the reward for breaking the Xingyuan record. We still have to distinguish between the big and small kings. Even if we fail to break the record in the end, our loss won't be too great. Shen Xingyan thought so in his heart, and he walked to the middle of the wheat field and squatted down, gently stroking the wheat ears, and encouraged them with a sigh, "You must do your best for me tomorrow. Don't let me down." Shen Xingyan has high hopes for this acre of wheat. After all, the 2 previous record-breaking times were pleasant surprises for Shen Xingyan. Only this time he took the initiative to try. If he had failed despite trying deliberately, it would have been a big blow to him. Shen Xingyan checked it carefully again and felt relieved when he saw that there was no problem. He chatted with Wang Ke for a while and felt that it was about time, so he returned to the real world. After lunch, he went to the training hall to exercise as usual. It was only during this payment that Shen Xingyan saw the front desk staff's kind side. The front desk staff no longer had the initial prejudice against Shen Xingyan, who had persisted in coming here to train for so many days. You have to know that the temptations of the Star Source world are much greater than here. It is already very precious that you can come here for so many days to train yourself steadily instead of indulging in the fantasy of the Star Source world. Although she was not sure how long this young man could hold on, it did not prevent her from changing her attitude towards Shen Xingyan. After taking the timer, Shen Xingyan looked at the change in the front desk staff's attitude, smiled and nodded to the other party, then walked towards the strength training area. When some people who were exercising nearby saw Shen Xingyan coming, they also stopped to look at him for a moment. They still have an impression of the young man who was stimulated yesterday, and then they didn't care and continued to exercise. Everyone who can exercise here knows one thing, in this era, everything depends on strength. Shen Xingyan selected an area, increased the difficulty of the training equipment to the limit he could bear, and then began to exercise in an orderly manner. Now that he has mastered the Dragon Elephant Fist at the master level, his mentality is a little more stable. After regaining his rationality, he resumed his previous training mode. After all, it was okay to be in the state like yesterday occasionally, but in the long run it would increase the burden on the body, which would not be worth the cost. However, Shen Xingyan was interrupted by an accident not long after he started exercising. He had clearly adjusted the difficulty level while exercising, but after a while he felt that the difficulty level suddenly became not so difficult. This surprised him for a moment, and he recalled that he had the same feeling the last time his strength attribute was increased. But it's only been a short while since I started training, how come my strength has increased? With this question in mind, Shen Xingyan checked his physical attributes and found that it was just as he thought. His strength had indeed increased a little, and his attack attribute had also been improved. I had expected a breakthrough today. After all, the combination of Dragon Elephant Fist training and improved nutrition and other factors has resulted in a slight increase in strength, so I don't feel surprised. But I didn't expect it to happen so quickly. Shen Xingyan thought with some emotion, then left the strength training area and went directly to the agility training area to see if the same improvement would occur. After all, the Dragon Elephant Fist's improvements to strength and agility have already been shown in the introduction of the martial arts. The strength attribute has just been improved so quickly. Under the same conditions, Shen Xingyan guessed that agility should also show similar results. After Shen Xingyan adjusted the difficulty of the agility equipment to the limit he could bear, he started exercising. Directly. Chapter 71. Agility training mainly focuses on speed and reaction ability, especially speed. If the agility attribute is improved, there will be obvious feedback in speed. However, as if to verify Shen Xingyan's conjecture, not long after he started agility training, his physical speed was significantly improved. After stopping, I opened the attribute panel and saw that, as expected, the agility attribute had increased by 1 point just like the strength attribute, and the speed had also increased accordingly. Shen Xingyan felt the feeling of becoming stronger due to the improvement of his physical attributes, and couldn't help but smile. You should know that these improvements are permanent attributes, not the temporary attributes that come with martial arts. They can be said to be the real foundation for survival. He had just experienced this pleasure of having both attributes improved in a short period of time the day before, but he did not expect to experience it again today. Such a situation might not be uncommon among those aristocratic families. But for a small person like Shen Xingyan at the bottom of society, the probability of this happening is extremely small, which makes him sigh with admiration and an indescribable sense of accomplishment in his heart. Afterwards, Shen Xingyan quickly adjusted his mood and decided to pay attention to his words and actions in this public area to avoid getting carried away and causing any adverse consequences. He then continued exercising. The improvement in attributes did not affect Shen Xingyan's execution of the next training plan. He knew in his heart that the recent rapid improvement in attributes was partly due to some recent external factors, but more of it was supported by the foundation he had accumulated before awakening. Now that these attributes have been improved one after another, he feels that his foundation has been almost consumed. Although there will be the existence of perceptual skills in the future, as the original energy increases, the improvement of martial arts will have a greater effect on the body, and the speed of improvement will become quite considerable. But what he can do now is to make good use of the current conditions and move forward step by step without slacking off. Although the progress is slow, he feels very at ease. Shen Xingyan continued this training until Shen Xingyang's school time came, then he left the training hall and returned home with his sister. Brother, why do I feel so energetic today? After a whole day of exercise, I don't feel as hungry as before. Is the rabbit meat yesterday so effective? On the way back, Shen Xingyang excitedly talked about this exciting thing, as if the occurrence of this thing was a wonderful ray of light in her life, which made her feel very novel. In the past, after Shen Xingyang's training, she would always feel a strong sense of hunger because she was growing and her daily nutrition was not enough. Such things happened frequently, and she, at such a young age, felt somewhat accustomed to it, although it did feel very uncomfortable. However, this familiar feeling did not appear today, which made her happy and she subconsciously attributed it to the rabbit meat she had last night. Shen Xingyan, who had also experienced the same situation as his sister, touched her head with some pity when he heard her say this. He secretly made up his mind not to let his sister suffer the same pain he had suffered. Shen Xingyan knew the truth about his sister's feeling, and thought it was probably the effect of the physical medicine, but his sister thought it was because of the rabbit meat, so he didn't correct her. It was good for her to think so. After the brother and sister returned home and finished dinner, they went back to their respective rooms. Shen Xingyang began to exercise, while Shen Xingyan lay directly on the bed. If this situation happened in a family a long time ago, Shen Xingyan's behavior would probably be met with a wave of criticism and love. But in this era, it is something worth promoting. No one will say anything. Almost every professional is in this state. They are not sleeping, but working hard for a better tomorrow. Shen Xingyan's consciousness came to the planting space, and he used his innate skills to summon his 15th little skeleton, and then threw the freshly emerged little skeleton to Wang Ke for training. He locked his eyes on all the farmlands and looked at the professional skills that had long been cooled down. The novice staff instantly appeared in his hand. With the mad surge of energy in his body, the effect of professional skills plus 10% progress instantly covered all the farmlands. When they saw the small stick in their master's hand, the little skeletons that had originally surrounded Shen Xingyan also very consciously walked towards the areas they were responsible for, waiting for a new round of work. After Shen Xingyan finished casting his professional skills, he saw that the growth of the crops in front of him was much smaller than before. He knew in his heart that they had reached the period of fruit growth, and he would soon usher in the harvest time. With the completion of Shen Xingyan's professional skill effects, the growth progress of the potatoes has reached nearly 14 days. There are still 6 days left before the 20-day maturity period, but for Shen Xingyan, the day after tomorrow will be the time to harvest the potatoes. Through his understanding over this period of time, he found that no one has been able to break the record of the star source world for the crop potato. The reason is that the growth cycle of potatoes is too long. Although all professions can stay in the star source world indefinitely after reaching level 20, in principle, as long as your mental power is high enough, you can stay here forever. However, Due to the inherent limitations of human mental power, no professional can do this at this stage. Therefore, it is already difficult for other farmers to reach the record standard of the star source world, let alone break it. From his previous record-breaking record for wheat, it can be seen that it is not easy to break through a long-term crop like this one that lasts more than 10 days. Only Shen Xingyan had the help of the little skeletons who could be online 24 hours a day, so he could break the record without being punished by task stagnation, but others did not have this condition. In view of this, Shen Xingyan felt that by the time the potatoes were harvested, he would have a very high chance of breaking the Xingyan world record. The wheat that he had high hopes for has made nearly 9 days of growth, and the final experimental results will be available for inspection tomorrow night. Am I suspected of taking advantage of the Xingyan world? Shen Xingyan wondered for no reason as he calculated the possibility of the 2 crops breaking records. Then he smiled and shook his head. After all, he was just farming. Whether to give rewards or not was a matter of the star source world. What did it have to do with an ordinary farmer like him? Chapter 72. As Shen Xingyan's professional skills completed their mission in the farmland, Xingyuan's maintenance prompt quickly appeared above the farmland again. The experienced little skeletons had been ready since Shen Xingyan picked up the small sticks. Some of them were eager to move, and now they began to work without stopping. Shen Xingyan was also among the working people. Although the current number of small skeletons is enough to deal with the star source prompts after releasing skills, Shen Xingyan still chooses to join in for safety reasons. Ever since the number of little skeletons reached a certain level, his working time was limited to a short period of time each day, and he didn't want to be deprived of normal working opportunities. It was only a matter of 1 or 2 hours, and Shen Xingyan just took it as a chance to relax. At this time in the farmland, with Wang Kei's smooth command and Shen Xingyan's overall planning, they seemed to be working particularly calmly, as if they were participating in a game between the master and the summoned creatures, full of relaxation and comfort. Fortunately, Xingyuan Tip has no consciousness of its own. If it had, it would probably feel helpless when it saw 15 little skeletons and Shen Xingyan, who looked very satisfied, working together in this small 5-acre farmland. After all, using 16 laborers to deal with the maintenance reminders of 5 acres of land is obviously an overabundance of manpower, and it does not seem like something that a person who is good at calculations can do. Here, the reminder floating menacingly above the farmland no longer seems to be a high-ranking commander, but a tool for entertainment for the professionals and little skeletons here. This sense of frustration forms a huge gap with the treatment of the reminder in other planting spaces. Moreover, every time the prompt appears, it will be quickly eliminated, but the prompt cannot put up any resistance due to the restrictions of the rules. Anyone with emotions will feel suffocated and panic. Shen Xingyan and his companions, who were working, naturally did not think about the issue of prompts. After farming in the Xingyan world for such a long time, eliminating maintenance prompts had become their instinctive reaction. Shen Xingyan worked in the fields for 2 hours, and then, just like yesterday, returned to reality to exercise until late at night, then returned to the Star Wish world to continue resting, and finally slept until the next morning. After waking up on time, Shen Xingyan bought 2 bottles of physical medicine for his sister at Xingyuan Mall and extracted them to the real world. As a result, the money in his wallet was immediately reduced by half. Looking at the increasingly thin purse, Shen Xingyan couldn't help but shook his head and sighed, this money is really hard to spend. I still have to hurry up and make money. If the wheat harvest this time can break the record, I wonder if Xingyuan world can give me some gold coins to spend. Although Shen Xingyan thought so in his heart, he also knew that the possibility was not high. After all, according to his understanding of breaking records and other professional task rewards, the Xingyuan world basically rewards some props or items, and it is rare to see direct money. In this regard, Xingyuan is like a miser, earning price differences in the Xingyuan Mall. Money rarely appears in various rewards, and it costs money to withdraw Xingyuan's things to the real world. It is true that everything cannot be separated from money. After putting his thoughts aside, Shen Xingyan returned to reality. He gave his sister the physical potion in a hidden form and then sent her to school. After watching his sister walk into the school, Shen Xingyan began to think about his next arrangements. The first thing to do is to find out where to use the comprehension skills that are about to complete their cooling down. The Dragon Elephant Fist has now reached the level of mastery, and the difficulty of subsequent upgrades will definitely increase. Even with the buff of the perception skill, it is unlikely to have another major breakthrough, so we can only use it on other martial arts. Thinking of this, Shen Xingyan first thought of the demon subduing stick. After all, every boy seemed to have an inexplicable love for sticks, and he was no exception. After thinking about it for a while, he made his choice. After choosing the arrangement for his perception skills, Shen Xingyan no longer hesitated and went to a nearby market to buy the cheapest stick for 200 copper coins. Although this stick does not have any additional attributes, it is sturdy and durable. After returning home, Shen Xingyan directly picked up the music score of the demon subduing stick and began to practice in the yard. At this time, he was not afraid of being seen by others. After all, most professionals spent this period of time in sleep. Except for some people going to school, few people would leave the house, and his residential area was sparsely populated, so it was quite difficult to see a single person. Then it wouldn't matter even if others saw him practicing the demon subduing stick. After all, it was very easy for others to acquire such an ordinary martial art, and his practice wouldn't attract much extra attention. It seems that without the ability to comprehend the skills, it is really difficult to practice this martial art. Shen Xingyan, who had been practicing according to the score for a while, couldn't help but sigh. With his limited understanding, after practicing for a while he could only imitate the moves in the score. He did not understand the purpose of the moves and the score at all, let alone know whether they were right or wrong. Fortunately, the perception skill also completed its cooldown at this time, which allowed Shen Xingyan, who had been teased by the demon subduing stick for a while, to officially start his counterattack. Shen Xingyan put away his playful thoughts and seriously recited in his mind to activate the perception skill. Instantly, the familiar feeling from yesterday came to his mind again. The high bonus of comprehension value made Shen Xingyan's mouth curl up slightly. Looking at the martial art demon subduing stick in his hand, he couldn't help but chuckle. In his heart, he secretly said, 30 years in the east, 30 years in the west, mo. Well, wait and see how I teach you a lesson. Thinking this in his mind, he did not delay and carefully checked the score of the demon subduing stick again. At this moment, in Shen Xingyan's eyes, the mysterious veil of the demon subduing stick seemed to have been lifted up by himself. The key points that seemed incomprehensible and vague before, as well as the many problems that I had not noticed, have all revealed their true colors one by one with the help of perception skills. Not long after, Shen Xingyan read through the score. He had some enlightenment in his mind, and the transparent man in his mind appeared again. But the difference was that this time he also held a transparent stick in his hand and began to practice the demon subduing stick. Shen Xingyan, who already had experience in this, did not delay and slowly followed along in the drill. Chapter 73. The improvement of Shen Xingyan's comprehension by perceiving skills is enormous. On the surface, it is just a simple mathematical relationship of 1 + 1 = 2, but in fact, it has made his understanding of martial arts improve exponentially. Shen Xingyan couldn't help but marvel at the sudden enlightenment of the previously obscure demon subduing stick after he had understood it and practiced it now. It turns out that the difference between geniuses and ordinary people is so huge, there seems to be an insurmountable gap between the two. If an ordinary person like me practices martial arts without any skills, the difficulty can be imagined after the comparison just now. It is too difficult. Shen Xingyan couldn't imagine that a person had practiced martial arts for several years but still hadn't mastered it. That would be a real test of one's patience. People with unstable minds would probably collapse. No wonder the school didn't recommend practicing martial arts. While thinking this in his mind, his hands were not idle. He waved the demon subduing stick, and it felt like he was getting closer and closer to the transparent man. After more than 40 minutes, Shen Xingyan felt that the strength of his body and the stick skills in his hands suddenly changed, and there was a significant improvement overall. This feeling was similar to the last time I broke through the dragon elephant fist. I suddenly took out the star source card and checked it. Demon subduing stick, a glimpse of the method after the martial arts is activated, the corresponding physical strength is consumed, and strength +2 and defense +1 can be temporarily obtained. Current progress, 1%. Seeing that the introduction to the demon subduing stick martial arts appeared below the dragon elephant fist martial arts, Shen Xingyan immediately smiled and nodded with satisfaction. The demon subduing stick itself is more offensive, so he was not surprised that it could increase its strength by 2 points, but he did not expect it to have an additional defensive attribute. It should be known that the defensive attribute of the dragon elephant fist, which is capable of both offense and defense, only appears when the entry level reaches 50%, but the demon subduing stick gains this attribute as soon as the beginner level is reached. It seems that while the demon subduing stick focuses on attack, its defensive attribute is also more prominent, which means that the best defense is offense. After checking it, Shen Xingyan did not waste precious time for comprehension and continued to devote the rest of his time to the demon subduing stick. 10 minutes later, when Shen Xingyan finished his comprehension and put away the stick, he saw that the progress of the demon subduing stick had increased to 24%. I now have another martial art to rely on. The speed of improvement is really fast. After putting the stick away, Shen Xingyan chuckled with a hint of emotion. In the following time, Shen Xingyan started exercising as usual, and went to the training hall to exercise in the afternoon. Everything went according to plan. After the improvement in strength, agility, and physique some time ago, it was natural that there was no increase. Shen Xingyan was aware of this and did not feel disappointed. It was not until the training was completed and his sister was picked up from school that Shen Xingyan's calm mood during training began to fluctuate, because in a few hours his wheat experimental field would usher in the final results. After having dinner with his sister, Shen Xingyan went straight back to the house. Lying on the bed, his consciousness connected to the star source space through the star source card. After a while of chanting, he summoned his 16th little skeleton. He patted the new little skeleton's head as a greeting, threw it to Wang Kei, and then quickly walked to the 1-acre wheat field in the center of the farmland. He squatted down and gently weighed the ears of wheat. He felt that although their weight had increased a little after a day of growth, the increase did not seem very large to him. It seems that I can only wait for a few hours before using my professional skills. Thinking of this, Shen Xingyan couldn't help but look at the professional skills that had completed cooling in the attribute panel. It all depends on you now. Shen Xingyan murmured. During the following period of time, Shen Xingyan did not choose to return to the real world to continue training, but worked slowly in the fields with Wang Kei and others, focusing on taking care of the acre of farmland where wheat was planted. Although he also knew that this behavior would have almost negligible impact on the final wheat yield, he still did it out of psychological comfort. Shen Xingyan works while waiting for the wheat to mature. It is always difficult for a person to wait for a known event to happen. In these few short hours, he felt as if the days were long. You know, during normal exercise, this amount of time is not enough for him at all, and often several hours have passed by the time he comes to his senses. However, now this time seems to have been stretched several times. During this long wait, time slowly came to the time when the wheat was about to mature. Shen Xingyan, who had been preparing for a long time, released his professional skills at the right time. Ding, it is detected that you are using a professional skill on some crops that are about to mature. The use of this skill may fail on these crops. Do you want to continue? The same star source prompt appeared again as last time, and Shen Xingyan, who had expected it, quickly confirmed continue. As Shen Xingyan's thoughts came to mind, the surrounding crops suddenly made a strange sound. This phenomenon allowed him to make some judgment about what would happen next. Congratulations, you have successfully used your professional skills. Farmer professional experience points +1. Sure enough, the prompt sound of successful skill casting rang in his ears, and Shen Xingyan's worries were instantly reduced by more than half. At this moment, the original energy in his body instantly covered all the farmland through the novice walking stick, and the potatoes began to show obvious changes. They were in the late stage and were just about to bear fruit. The appearance of such changes showed that the progress was a terrifying +10%. However, Shen Xingyan did not pay attention to them, but focused all his attention on the wheat in front of him. Through his careful observation, he found that the wheat at this time had undergone the same changes as last time. The grains inside the ears of wheat first expanded rapidly, and then quickly shrank back, once again showing signs of failure. However, when seeing this familiar phenomenon, Shen Xingyan did not show any frustration, but was slightly excited and thought, that's the phenomenon. Last time I thought it was a sign of failure, but after analysis, I confirmed that it should be a necessary process to improve the yield and quality of crops. When Shen Xingyan was thinking this, a warning sign appeared above the acre of wheat, indicating that the wheat had entered a harvestable state. Chapter 74. Wang Ke, leave 3 little skeletons per acre of potato field to respond to Xingyuan's maintenance prompts, and all other little skeletons come together to harvest the wheat. Looking at the sign of maturity and harvestability that appeared in front of him, Shen Xingyan quickly gave orders to Wang Ke. After receiving clear instructions from his master, Wang Ke did not hesitate at all. He just gently twisted his head with the small straw hat on and glanced at the other little skeletons one by one. The other little skeletons then began to act in an orderly manner, like soldiers receiving orders from a general. After giving the order, Shen Xingyan left everything to Wang Ke, and began to wield the sickle in his hand and took the lead in harvesting. Wang Ke, along with the 3 little skeletons who were helping with the harvest, took up their small sickles and joined the battle. Before long, with Shen Xingyan as the main output and the little skeleton assisting from the side, the acre of wheat was quickly harvested. As Shen Xingyan retracted his last sickle, only the remnants of wheat straw remained in the entire wheat field. After Shen Xingyan stood up straight, he stood there nervously. He was not in a hurry to pick up the wheat harvested by Wang Ke and the others, but waited for Qi Xingyuan's prompt. According to past experience, the star source world will give him the final result of this experiment. At this moment, Shen Xingyan was like a student waiting for the results to be announced after an exam. The intertwined emotions of anticipation and worry made him feel complicated and a little uneasy. This sentiment did not last long, and Xingyuan world directly announced the results. Congratulations! You have planted 600 square meters of wheat and harvested 2,110 kilograms of wheat. You have earned 211 points of farmer professional experience. The reminder sound of the Xingyuan world appeared in Shen Xingyan's ears as promised. In the quiet planting space, its sound was particularly loud. When Shen Xingyan heard the number reported in this prompt, his originally somewhat uneasy heart suddenly became extremely clear, as if it was brightened in an instant. At the same time, this reminder, which seemed to be devoid of emotion to outsiders, sounded extremely pleasant to his ears, like the sound of nature. I remember the last time I broke the record, the per acre wheat yield record was 2,050 kilograms. This time it reached 2,110 kilograms. Although it was only an increase of 60 kilograms, the increase was a bit small, but it was still a record-breaking achievement. My experiment this time is a real success, and this is my 3rd time breaking the record. I wonder what kind of reward Xingyuan will give me this time. Shen Xingyan thought so in his heart, and his hands began to rub left and right. However, Xingyuan world did not keep Shen Xingyan in suspense and announced directly without any delay, congratulations! You have once again broken the record of 2,050 kilograms of wheat yield per acre that you have created so far, and successfully reached 2,110 kilograms. As a special reward to you, you will receive a talent skill growth stone. Xingyuan will make an announcement to the whole region. Do you want to make the information public? As Xingyuan informed him of the record-breaking achievement, Shen Xingyan's expectant face suddenly revealed a look of surprise. Talent skill growth stone? Is it the talent stone that I know? This puzzled and surprising question instantly occupied Shen Xingyan's mind, causing him to stop thinking for a moment. After a moment, Shen Xingyan, who had regained his ability to think, quickly opened his attribute panel, skipping over all the attributes and directly focusing on his innate skills. Looking at the words all attributes are 1, he couldn't help but start to imagine, with this stone, will the little skeletons with all attributes of 1 have hope of improving their strength? Can they be improved to 2? Or maybe we can increase the speed, so that their work efficiency can be doubled? If there are more stones like this in the future, will his little skeleton be able to fight with him? This reward from Xingyuan made his thoughts completely diverge. In his mind, he began to imagine the scene in which the little skeletons would run briskly with him to go out and kill disasters in the future. After coming to his senses, he chose not to make it public without waiting for the Star Source world to urge him, and quickly completed the record-breaking process so that he could see what this talent skill growth stone looked like. However, Xingyuan world didn't care what Shen Xingyan thought. After receiving Shen Xingyan's decision not to make it public, it immediately issued a notice to the entire Xingyan world. Professional XXX has broken the record of 2,050 kilograms of wheat per acre so far, and successfully reached 2,110 kilograms. He is rewarded with a talent skill growth stone. This is hereby announced to the whole district. 3 consecutive announcements echoed in all areas of the Xingyan world, as if reminding all professionals that the Xingyan world would not treat unfairly any professional who made outstanding achievements. Wheat again, wheat again. What kind of bug is there in wheat that makes it appear so frequently in world bulletins? I can't figure it out no matter how hard I try. A middle-aged man in fancy clothes was scratching his hair vigorously while staring at the wheat field in front of him. At this moment, his wheat, which had just reached the ear-forming stage after experiencing a mission stop penalty, had no intention of surpassing the Xingyan record. The wheat record-breaking improvement this time is not that high. Maybe this group of people have reached their limit. It's really crazy. An old man sighed. I want to report it. This group of people are cheating. They broke the record 3 times in such a short period of time, and they were all wheat. It's impossible to achieve it without cheating. Damn it, I want to cheat too. Xingyan's world announcement not only shocked all the farmers, but even the combat professionals began to feel jealous. A talent skill growth stone? This Xingyan world is too generous. How can a poor farmer like him get such a good thing? This thing is meant for our combat profession. The entire Xingyan world became much more noisy than the previous 2 times because of this announcement. At this moment, Shen Xingyan did not think at all about what kind of response this announcement would cause. He was only thinking about whether this talent skill enhancement stone could improve the attributes of the little skeleton. Seeing that the announcement had been completed, Xingyan's reward also flashed across his eyes and appeared in his space backpack. He opened his backpack space. At this time, a black stone was quietly placed in the last item column. Its blackness was comparable to that of the Xingyan card. Shen Xingyan took it out. Gently. Chapter 75. Looking at the black stone in his hand, Shen Xingyan did not have time to think about why it was so pure black, but instead focused all his attention on what properties it would have. As his mind moved, the attribute description of the talent skill growth stone in his hand appeared before his eyes. Item, talent skill growth stone, primary, category, special props rarity, rare quantity, 1 attribute, synchronous growth of talent and skills plus 1 background, made from some special fragments in the early days of the star source. It developed some special abilities as the star source world grew and evolved. As the introduction of the talent stone appeared, Shen Xingyan's eyes were fixed on the attributes of the talent stone, and a series of question marks flashed through his mind. Talent skill synchronous growth plus 1? What does this mean? Looking at the attribute description of this talent stone, his originally excited mood calmed down. He did not expect such a simple attribute description. In his opinion, there should be some specific values. What does the growth attribute mean? Shen Xingyan, who was somewhat confused, couldn't help but speculate, and at the same time began to think about what kind of results would be produced after he used the growth plus 1 attribute, so that he could have an expectation in mind. Before, when he was in school, he had only heard of the existence of this thing in his daily studies, but he didn't know its specific function. So without any reference, he could only think about it randomly and make up his mind. Shen Xingyan imagined the future, and then hesitated for a short while before he stopped worrying about it, thinking that the truth would be revealed after seeing the results of use. After thinking this through, Shen Xingyan carefully checked the other attributes. He was surprised to see that the talent stone also had entries such as category, rarity, and background. After all, he had been awakened for so many days, and this was the first time he had seen these entries. All these signs indicate that this gifted stone is extraordinary. Looking at its name, how come it's still a primary stone? It didn't say so in the previous tip. Is this because Xingyan world gave me a discount? Or is it because I broke the record with wheat? After seeing the suffix of the name of this talent stone, Shen Xingyan also began to think, primary talent stone, will there be intermediate or advanced talent stones in the future? Let's see what effect the primary talent stone will have first. Shen Xingyan played with the stone in his hand for a while, feeling it carefully. After recording the feeling, he sighed in his heart, this high-end gift stone is not something you can understand. Just use it and see the effect. After sighing, he no longer hesitated. With a thought, he directly issued instructions to the talent skill growth stone to use it. As the command was issued, the black talent stone in Shen Xingyan's hand began to slowly disappear. He felt his whole body suddenly shaken, and his vision suddenly turned black, and his consciousness seemed to be blank for a short time. He had not expected such a big reaction to using the talent stone and was immediately frightened. When his consciousness returned and he opened his eyes again, he saw the familiar roof. Only then did he realize that he had returned to the real world. I was kicked out of the Xingyan world? What happened? Is the reaction to using a talent stone so big? When Shen Xingyan woke up in reality and realized what was happening in front of him, he was startled and immediately sat up from the bed. He was extremely surprised by this unexpected thing. Coming back to his senses, he quickly took out the star source card, and his consciousness directly reconnected to the star source world, without noticing the changes in his attributes at all. Fortunately, there were no accidents when he entered the star source world this time. After he successfully arrived at his own planting space, he slowly calmed down and said to himself, fortunately, I can enter normally. I almost thought that I was locked in the small dark room by using a black stone. Shen Xingyan calmed down and looked at the planting space. The little skeletons who had helped him harvest wheat had been distributed to other farmlands to work. And their movements did not look like they had just started working, which also showed that the time when his consciousness was blank might have been more than a moment. Although he was aware of this problem, Shen Xingyan did not think too much about it. Instead, he directly opened his attribute panel and looked directly at his talent skills. Talent, summon skeletons, growth +1, summon 2 skeleton monsters with all attributes of 2 to fight, cooling time 24 hours. After watching the skill introduction of summoning skeletons, Shen Xingyan couldn't help but open his mouth slightly, and his eyes seemed to be absent-minded. The abnormal situation after using the talent stone just now was instantly thrown behind his mind, and his mind kept swinging back and forth between the two s. It's actually a double attribute improvement. This talent stone is too awesome. Shen Xingyan whispered softly at first, and as he slowly accepted the facts before him, his voice became louder and louder, and the originally astonished expression on his face began to turn into an irrepressible smile. As his excitement grew, Shen Xingyan's desire to share became stronger, but he couldn't tell anyone about this, which made him feel a little suffocated. Looking around, Shen Xingyan locked his eyes on his capable assistant. He quickly walked to Wang Ke who was working, lifted him up without saying anything, and spun him around excitedly, saying loudly, "Wang Ke, this time we are really going to take off. In the future, you will have more and more subordinates. You will not only be the captain, but at least the platoon leader or the regiment leader." As Shen Xingyan shouted loudly, Wang Ke seemed to have noticed his emotions. Without any struggle, he opened his small skeleton hand and felt the feeling of being rotated rapidly. Shen Xingyan, who was in excitement at the moment, was unaware of this. He only knew that his desire to go out and kill the enemies had become clearer because of the talent stone. The primary talent stone can have such a strong ability. Then, as my advanced crops begin to break through the star source, will I have the opportunity to obtain intermediate and advanced talent stones? With this idea in mind, Shen Xingyan's vision seemed to travel through time and space and arrive at a battlefield outside the realm several years later. With a wave of his hand, a group of high attribute skeletons appeared there, hitting wherever they pointed and being invincible. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.